blind man whispers one word what the dog did next left everyone silent. The desert was quiet, but not still. In a small fenced rehab center on the edge of nowhere, a man in dark glasses walked slowly beside a dog that never strayed more than a few inches from his side. The man was Tyler Cade, once a decorated Marine, now legally blind, left with more questions than answers. The dog? They called him Ash. No bark, no tail wag, just alert, unreadable calm. Until the clang, a sudden metallic echo from a dropped gate chain. In an instant, the calm shattered. Ash lunged. Tyler collapsed. Screams followed. Then, a single word in German. And just like that, everything stopped. Someone had caught it on their phone. Within hours, the video was everywhere. Blind vet controls aggressive canine with secret command. But no one knew what the word meant. No one knew who trained that dog. Not even Tyler. The kennel sat at the far edge of the Baton Rouge Canine Rehabilitation Facility, where the wind always seemed to carry more dust than air and the sun hit harder than it should. Rust freckled the outer fencing. Beyond the mesh wire and steel bars, the land went flat, as if even the earth was trying to forget this place existed. Inside the far stall, Ash paced. Each step was methodical, precise, not restless, but restrained. The kind of movement born of training that had been taught in whispers and blood. His claws clicked against the cracked concrete floor in a rhythm so steady it was nearly ritual. Left, right, turn, pause, repeat. A cadence only broken when a shadow passed too close to his door and his amber eyes flicked toward it not with fear, but calculation. He didn't growl. He didn't bark. He simply watched. His coat was a blend of black and sable, thick at the scruff, matted around the neck where a collar had once clung too tightly for too long. A jagged scar sliced diagonally across his snout, just beneath the left eye, and gave the illusion of a perpetual sneer, though he never bared his teeth. One ear stood tall, the other half-folded from an old break that never healed right. On the chain-link gate, a tarnished metal tag bore a single name stamped in fading black ink. Ash K, 9 Intake 2047, AWW. The other handlers stayed away now, some by policy, most by fear. He's dangerous, they whispered behind clipboards. 3 bites, 1 officer hospitalized. The dog's got a switch that's stuck halfway to hell. Even Captain Rosner, the hardened facility director, had stopped defending him. In the admin office, a file folder sat on the corner of his desk, thick, dog-eared, a red sticker, labeled Pending Disposition. Inside, medical charts, behavior logs, photos, and a final page awaiting a signature. One stroke of the pen, and Ash's story would end behind closed doors, without ceremony or grief. But the dog did not know this. He only knew the sound of footsteps and the weight of eyes. He knew when someone was measuring him for a collar and when they were measuring for a coffin. Outside, the Louisiana heat soaked into the concrete. The air buzzed with cicadas and the faint hum of highway traffic somewhere far off, too far to mean freedom. Inside the stall, Ash paused mid-pace and stared at the dust motes spinning in the late afternoon sunbeam. His ears twitched. He stood still, alert. Someone was coming. The hallway beyond his kennel was narrow and dimly lit, a passage of flickering fluorescence and disinfectant tang. The metal door at the end creaked open. Boots echoed. Ash's posture didn't change, but his eyes narrowed just slightly as if something inside him had shifted by a degree. Officer McTavish, the rotating handler that week, walked past without slowing. He avoided Ash's gaze entirely, as if locking eyes might trigger something that couldn't be taken back. A clipboard bounced nervously against his side. Behind him trailed Harper Levesque, younger, steadier, and not yet weighed down by years of writing off dogs that didn't comply. She stopped in front of Ash's stall. "Still no appetite?" she asked McTavish without looking at him. He shook his head. 3rd day. Only drank water. He flipped his bowl this morning, bit the chain hook. Harper frowned, kneeling slightly. "And he hasn't barked once?" "Not once. Just watches." Ash stood at the back of the kennel, his tail still, ears forward. He didn't blink. She met his gaze. It wasn't the wild stare of a feral dog, nor the dull look of one that had given up. It was surgical, measuring, Not looking through her, but into her. It made her skin pull tight beneath her collar. "You say he bit Officer Darnell?" McTavish nodded. "2 punctures. Deep. Required 12 stitches. No provocation." Harper remained crouched, silent, her hand resting loosely on the door latch, not to open, just to feel the cold metal, to remember there was still a line between them. "That's not no provocation. That's trauma," she murmured. McTavish exhaled hard. "He's a loaded weapon without a safety. I know war dogs, Harper. This one's beyond saving." Harper stood, brushing her knees. "Maybe you're just not the one who's supposed to save him," he scoffed. "Who is?" She didn't answer. Her gaze stayed locked on Ash. And for a moment, so brief it could have been imagined, the dog tilted his head not in confusion, but recognition, as if somewhere behind his stillness, a name was rising, a face, a scent, a voice. She walked away. Ash returned to his pacing, but his rhythm had changed. The cabin sat at the edge of Bayou Teche, half sunken in shadow beneath a canopy of old cypress and Spanish moss. It was the kind of place the world passed over, where cell signals vanished and time moved like fog across water. Birds didn't sing here. They watched. Inside, Tyler Kane moved through the space the way only a man without sight but with ritual could. His left hand brushed the grain of the wooden wall, counting grooves in the paneling. Right hand hovered near the old cast-iron stove. Not touching, just sensing the heat that lingered from morning coffee. He wore no shirt, just faded camo pants and the skin of a man who'd spent too many years under too many suns. A jagged line of scar tissue ran from his collarbone to the edge of his ribs, a souvenir from a detonation in Fallujah. His eyes, clouded but unhidden, tracked nothing. Yet somehow, he never stumbled. A veteran's radio hissed in the background, the kind that only played AM stations and war updates. A voice, gravel and grit, spoke of another roadside bombing in Kabul. Another 2 soldiers lost. Another name not read. Tyler paused, his fingers tightening slightly against the counter. The smell of black coffee hung in the air, mingling with cedarwood and motor oil. The scent always took him back to tents, half buried in sand, to rain that never came, to blood that always did. He reached for a tin cup, slid his fingers around the rim with the ease of repetition. The silence here wasn't empty. It was intentional, built like armor, layer by layer. No clocks, no photos, no mirrors. Just the tactile world he could still control. And yet, the silence cracked. The landline on the wall rang. Not the cell, the corded phone, the one only 2 people had the number to. The kind that didn't carry telemarketers, only ghosts. Tyler froze. 3 rings. 4. He crossed the floor in steady steps and lifted the receiver, the cord coiling like a snake in his palm. "Kane," he said. His voice was low, hoarse, the sound of gravel that once smoked too many packs a week. "Still answer like you're reporting in," a woman's voice replied. Calm, but edged with breathlessness. "I wasn't sure this number even worked anymore." Tyler paused. "Harper." "Yeah." He leaned against the wall, the wood cool against his back. "Been a long time. 7 years, 3 months, give or take." He exhaled. "You counting?" She didn't answer that. But the next thing she said came slowly, carefully, like stepping through a minefield where she wasn't sure if the blast radius had changed. "There's a dog," she said, "at my facility, Baton Rouge, brought in 3 months ago from a contractor turnover." Tyler's brow twitched. "Injured?" "Number. Not physically, but he's not stable. Doesn't respond to commands. Bit 3 officers. Keeps pacing like he's waiting for something. Or someone. Maybe." He didn't like the way her voice shifted there from procedural to personal. It was the tone soldiers used when something didn't fit in the report but lived in their bones. "His name's Ash." "Well, that's what the intake form says. German Shepherd. Big. Scarred. Doesn't bark. Just watches." Tyler felt something tug in his chest. Not memory. Not yet. But a weight. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked, softer now. "Because when I passed his kennel yesterday, I said your name out loud, talking to myself." A short pause. And he stopped pacing. The words landed like a breath sucked out of the room. She continued. He came to the front of the cage, Saturday down, still, stared at me like he was waiting for me to say it again. Chuler didn't speak. Harper filled the silence. I know how this sounds. I do. But he didn't act like a dog reacting to a noise. He acted like a soldier hearing a name in a crowd. And when I whispered, "Kane?" he whined. Just once. Like grief. As if grief. Tyler turned away from the wall, pacing now himself. He had trained dozens of dogs during his time in service, some short-term, some bonded. But when he lost his sight in Fallujah, his deployment records ended. The rest was murky, even to him. There were nights he woke speaking languages he didn't remember learning. He heard barking in his dreams. The kind that wasn't fear, but command. "You think I knew him?" Tyler asked. "I think he knew you," Harper said. The line held a heartbeat longer than it should have. Then Tyler said, almost against his own will, "What do you want me to do?" There was a long breath on the other end. Then a whisper that wasn't request, it was invitation. "Come see him." "I can't see." "You know what I mean." He hesitated. 7 years of silence, of hiding, of convincing himself that the past only mattered if someone else remembered it. But now, a dog did. And that was enough. "I'll be there by morning," Tyler said. "Gate opens at 6. I'll be waiting." Click. The line went dead. And for the first time in years, Tyler Kane turned toward memory instead of away from it. The sun was barely over the rooftops when the gate buzzed open. The Baton Rouge Canine Rehabilitation Facility didn't look like much from the outside. A low, bunker-like building surrounded by chain-link fencing and gravel parking lots, flanked by an old oak tree that had outlived everyone who remembered why it was planted. A black pickup rolled to a slow stop by the curb. Dust curled in the morning air as the engine cut. For a long moment, no one emerged. Then the door creaked open, and Tyler Kane stepped out. His boots touched gravel with the quiet certainty of someone used to unstable ground. In one hand, he held a white mobility cane, folded and clipped at his belt, but he didn't use it. His other hand brushed the side of the truck as he moved toward the front entrance, not out of hesitation, but ritual. He paused once at the gate, tilted his face toward the wind, and listened. Birds. One broken AC unit clicking, and a dog pacing, claws tapping somewhere deep behind steel and brick. Harper Levesque waited by the reception desk, watching him through the glass. She didn't move until he stepped inside. "You walked," she said softly, offering him nothing but her presence. "Didn't forget how," Tyler answered. He looked different than she remembered. Broader, maybe, leaner in the face, and the beard trim but imperfect, like a man who kept himself sharp out of habit, not vanity. His eyes remained half shut behind light-tinted lenses, but they flicked subtly with each shift of air or sound. Always tracking, always decoding. They didn't shake hands. "You sure about this?" Harper asked. "Number." She gave a thin smile. "Good. Means you're still human." The halls inside the facility were narrow and sterile. Concrete underfoot, overhead lights buzzing like distant hornets. As they walked, Tyler didn't speak. Harper guided him with brief, minimal cues. "Left here. Step down. Doorframe coming." He never tripped. At the far end of the kennel block, a small sign marked K9 Hold, Restricted. Behind the locked gate, 3 isolation units. Only one was occupied. Harper paused. "Just a few things before you go in." Tyler tilted his head slightly. "He's not on leash. He's not muzzled. Nobody else goes in with you. You want out. Knock twice on the wall. Someone will pull you." Tyler said nothing. "And Tyler," her voice dropped, "if he lunges, don't move. Don't run." He reads intent. "So do I," he murmured. She opened the gate. It screeched faintly, and that sound alone made Ash stir inside the stall. From the far end of the hallway, Ash stood frozen behind the mesh, broad shoulders tense, tail still, breath barely visible. His eyes locked forward, not wild, not wary, just locked. As if the moment the latch turned, time narrowed. Harper's steps slowed as she neared the kennel. She turned slightly. He's right in front of you." Tyler didn't nod, didn't lift his cane. He simply stepped forward. Ash didn't growl, didn't bark. He stood, perfectly still, as if something ancient had cracked open inside his ribs and told him to wait. The scar on his muzzle caught the hallway light, but his eyes, bright amber, glass clear, watched every inch of Tyler's approach. Tyler stopped just shy of the door, his boots on the metal groove that marked the threshold. "My name's Tyler," he said, his voice low, not commanding, remembering. Ash didn't flinch, but he blinked, once, slow, and then he sat, not casually, not like a dog giving in to gravity. He sat like a soldier at attention. Harper's breath caught in her throat. It was the first time she'd seen him sit without being forced, coaxed, or threatened. Tyler took a slow breath. "That's you, isn't it?" No reaction. He knelt, one knee creaking as it bent, his hand never lifting from his side. He didn't reach for the door. He didn't ask for a sign. He just listened. And in that silence, something passed between them. Not words, not thought, just weight. Memory without language. Ash stepped forward, 2 slow paces to the gate. He lowered his head just slightly and exhaled through the mesh. The sound was soft, almost imperceptible. A sigh, not of surrender but recognition. Tyler lowered his hand, palm down, inches from the steel. "I don't remember where," he whispered. "But you do, don't you?" Ash pressed his nose to the bars. His breath warmed the space between them. Behind them, Harper didn't move, didn't breathe. The monitors above recorded everything, but even the cameras seemed hesitant to intrude. Tyler didn't smile. He didn't cry. He only said one thing. "You waited." Ash shifted his weight, not back, but forward. Harper stepped forward slowly. "Tyler, this can't be coincidence." "No," he said. "It's not." She opened the gate. The latch popped. The door eased open with a soft groan. For a split second, every muscle in Ash's body coiled like a spring. And then nothing. He stepped forward, slowly, cautiously, and nudged Tyler's chest with his head. Not aggression, not submission. Belonging. Tyler's fingers found thick fur and held not tight, just enough. He exhaled, long and quiet. "You're not just Ash," he murmured. And Ash leaned in, eyes closing, tail twitching, once the smallest of gestures, but heavy as an oath. Behind them, Harper felt something shift in the room, like a storm breaking far away, like a dog who wasn't broken, and a man who remembered how to come home. The morning air inside the South training yard carried the scent of cut grass, damp concrete, and distant rain clouds rolling in over the river. Wind brushed faintly through the mesh perimeter fencing, rattling a loose tie like a whisper just out of reach. Tyler stood at the center of the yard, not in full gear, no leash, no cane, just his boots on the concrete, a simple dark tee pulled tight across his shoulders, and a dog standing 5 feet in front of him, eyes fixed, body low. Ash. No bark, no command, just stillness. Around the edge of the yard, behind a glass window pane, a small group of handlers watched from the control booth. Harper Levesque stood with arms crossed, tension coiled in her shoulders like a bowstring pulled but not released. She didn't speak. She didn't blink. Her gaze was locked on Tyler's hands and on the dog that responded to them like a soldier who never left the field. Ash moved first, one paw forward, shoulder low, eyes never leaving the center line of Tyler's chest. Then another step. His gait shifted from cautious to fluid, controlled, like choreography buried in muscle and marrow. Tyler raised his right hand slowly, not high, just midline palm tilted, 2 fingers extended in a gesture he didn't know he remembered. Ash halted. No hesitation, no tension, just obedience. Harper's breath caught in her throat. In the observation booth, Officer Riggins leaned forward and muttered, "Lucky guess." Tyler lowered his hand. "Vorwärts," he said quietly. The word came like breath, unbidden. He didn't know why he said it. It wasn't English. It wasn't even familiar. But Ash surged forward in a clean, low trot. Not toward him, around him. Wide circle. Shoulders squared, tail neutral, eyes scanning. A flank formation, like they'd trained it 100 times. "Stop," Tyler whispered. But what came out was something else. "Stay." Ash froze mid-stride. The wind stirred, lifting the edges of Tyler's shirt. He turned slightly, almost startled by his own voice. Harper stepped forward in the booth. "Did you hear that?" Officer Riggins scoffed. "It's German. Anyone can learn a few words." "He didn't learn it," she said quietly. "He remembered it." In the yard, Tyler stood still, arms at his sides. A bead of sweat traced down his temple, but his expression remained composed, listening to something inside himself he hadn't accessed in years. Ash remained frozen. Tyler took 2 slow steps forward, not with command, but with presence. He stopped again, lifted his hand the same way, palm flat, slight curve at the wrist. "Plats," Ash dropped. Not clumsily, not like a trick. He sank into position, chest flat, head up, ears forward. His breathing slowed. Tyler crouched. He didn't know why the words came or how they arrived. They weren't just vocabulary. They were reflex, embedded deep not in his mouth, but in his bones. He reached out, fingers hovering just above Ash's head. And then, gently, he whispered again, softer than wind. "Bleeb." Ash didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. And then Tyler dropped his hand onto the dog's fur, and it was like touching history. Not as a memory, but as a living, breathing artifact. The heat under his palm wasn't just warmth, it was recognition. Harper's voice came through the speaker, gentle, almost reverent. "Tyler." He didn't look up. "I don't know what this is," he murmured, "but it's not chance." Inside the booth, one of the newer handlers, a young woman named Cruz, asked, "Has he been trained in German commands before?" Harper shook her head. "Not with us. Not in any of the files." But the dog responds, "They both do." In the yard, Tyler exhaled slowly and stood. Ash followed, not rising like a pet, but reporting. His paws positioned shoulder-width apart, his body balanced like a soldier waiting for the next order. Tyler turned slightly, eyes unfocused behind his lenses. "You remember me," he whispered. "Even when I didn't remember myself." Ash tilted his head, not with curiosity, but patience. Harper stepped into the yard slowly, the outer door squeaking behind her. Her boots crunched softly on the grit-swept cement as she approached, giving space, but not silence. "You've handled dogs before," she said. "Yeah." "You speak German?" "Number. But it came out of you like you've used it your whole life." Tyler didn't respond right away. Then, with his voice lower than before, "It wasn't just in the dog." She waited. "It was in me." For a long moment, the 3 of them stood in the yard, 2 humans and a creature caught somewhere between war and memory. Ash walked forward and leaned against Tyler's side, pressing his body gently into the man's knee, seeking contact, offering grounding. Tyler didn't flinch. He simply laid a hand on Ash's shoulder. From the booth above, Officer Riggins muttered, "It's not real. No one bonds that fast." But Harper saw it. Not magic, not myth, muscle memory, grief, recognition. Ash didn't need to be taught what Tyler was, and Tyler didn't need to be told who Ash had once been. Whatever had broken between them years ago had not been destroyed, only buried. And now, piece by piece, it was rising. Tyler sat alone in the guest quarters. The facility had offered him a small room in the back wing of the building, plain and functional. 1 narrow bed, 1 chair, 1 metal locker that smelled faintly of bleach and rust. The walls were painted in a dull beige that didn't even try to be comforting. There were no windows, just the faint hum of overhead lighting and the rhythmic buzz of a ceiling fan that turned slower than it should have. He had placed his duffel bag, a worn, tan thing with frayed seams on the edge of the bed when he arrived, but hadn't unpacked it until now. He hadn't planned to stay long, just enough to see the dog Harper couldn't explain, just enough to walk away with some kind of closure. But now, he unzipped the bag slowly, not from hesitation, but from something quieter, reverence, maybe, or dread. Inside were the usual things. A few changes of clothes, a toothbrush wrapped in a washcloth, a small bottle of ibuprofen rattling like bones in a plastic tomb, and beneath it all, something he didn't remember packing. He stopped moving the moment his fingers brushed leather. Thick, worn, still faintly warm from the touch of sun or memory. He pulled it out slowly, carefully, like it might break. It was a collar, old, cracked at the edges, the kind you didn't buy off a shelf, but earned after years of service. The kind of collar meant for a war dog, not a pet. The leather was dark, almost black, but beneath the grime and oil and sun-faded creases, he could still see the outline of a brass tag riveted into place. He brought it closer, tilted it under the pale yellow light. 3 letters and 1 code, barely legible. EZ, RZK, 17. He stared at it for a long time, his thumb tracing the worn edges of the metal. He didn't recognize it, didn't remember touching it, didn't know how it had gotten into his bag. But something in his chest tightened, a sensation like wind shifting through a hollow space long boarded up. He rose from the bed, the collar still in hand, and opened the door to the hallway. The fluorescent light from above cast his shadow long against the floor as he walked slow, purposeful, each step measured. His fingers tightened unconsciously around the leather. Down the corridor, near the security office, Harper Levesque sat at her desk, typing slowly with one hand while nursing a coffee with the other. She looked up when she heard him. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked gently. He didn't answer. Instead, he extended the collar toward her. She blinked, set her cup down. "What's this?" "You tell me." Harper took it, her brows knitting as she turned it over. "Where'd you get this?" "Bottom of my bag." "You packed it?" He shook his head. "I've never seen it before." She ran her fingers along the edge of the brass tag, mouthing the letters silently before saying them out loud. "EZ, RZK 17 doesn't mean anything to you? Number. Not even the EZ? Number." Harper's expression changed, not in a dramatic way, but in a subtle shift of pressure behind the eyes, like something was beginning to fit, and she didn't like how easily it did. "This looks military," she said quietly. "Not civilian K9. Tyler nodded. "I was thinking the same." She looked at him. "Do you think this belonged to Ash?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he said, "Check the stitching." Harper turned the collar again, angling it toward her desk lamp. There, just beneath the inner fold of the leather, worn nearly smooth, were tiny initials burned into the seam. K-17. "That's not random," she whispered. Tyler leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. What if he wasn't always Ash? Harper looked up. "You think he had a different name? I think he had a different life." She stood slowly, still holding the collar in both hands. "I'm going to run the serial. If it's real, there'll be some trace in the old Dodd or contractor logs. You'll need clearance." "I'll find it," she said. "One of my former instructors used to pull files for disaster response dogs. He owes me." Tyler nodded slowly, as if trying to confirm something inside his own head. Harper softened her voice. "Do you really not remember anything?" He rubbed a hand across his beard, slow and deliberate. "I remember the feeling." "What feeling?" He looked at her, and for once, his clouded eyes felt sharp, like they could still pierce through. "Like I left something behind, but it didn't stop waiting." Harper nodded, the collar still warm in her hands. She didn't say it out loud, but the truth lingered between them like smoke. Ash wasn't just remembering. He was trying to remind. The room was dark but not quiet. There was no ticking clock, no humming fridge, only the soft creak of old pipes in the wall, the faint rattle of the ceiling fan overhead, and the steady rhythm of breathing two sets, one human, one not. Tyler Kane lay on his back in the narrow bed, arms folded behind his head, the sheet clinging to him like a second skin dampened by sweat. He hadn't changed clothes, hadn't even taken off his boots. The collar Harper had handed back sat on the nightstand beside him, its brass tag still catching the glow from the exit light outside the cracked door. He hadn't meant to fall asleep. But sleep didn't ask permission. It pulled him under. And somewhere in that place between breath and shadow, the hallway returned. It was always the same. Concrete walls, the color of dried blood, flickering light overhead, smoke thick as wool clinging to the floor. Somewhere behind him, footsteps pounded. Somewhere ahead, a child was crying not loudly, but with that strange, small sob of someone trying not to be found. Tyler moved through the corridor with urgency, a rifle in his hand, though he couldn't remember picking it up. His chest plate rattled with every step, and his ears rang like a bell that had been struck too hard, too close. He turned a corner, and there it was, a door, blown inward, cracked in half. The air smelled of gunpowder and something sour, fear maybe, or blood turned stale. And just inside the room, A little girl, curled behind a steel desk, barefoot, dust and tears streaking her cheeks. She looked up at him, and behind him a shape moved. A dog, not Ash, but the same eyes, same gait, same stillness like coiled muscle and code. The dog didn't bark. It simply waited. Then a voice rang out, deep, cold, and sharp as glass. Wrecker! Zurück! The dog turned instantly. Saturday. Stared. And Tyler knew the name, though he'd never heard it. Wrecker. Not Ash. Not anymore. The name echoed like it had been whispered into a canyon carved from bone, repeating itself through walls of silence and years of dust. Wrecker. 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 Tyler reached out, hand trembling not toward the child, but the dog. And the dog moved. Fast. Toward him. Eyes locked. Muzzle open. Then, blackness. He woke with a gasp, the kind that dragged air back into lungs that hadn't forgotten the smell of war. Sweat coated his back, slick beneath the cotton shirt he never removed. His pulse hammered in his throat. He sat up fast, hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. His boots hit the floor. Hard. The collar was still on the nightstand, brass gleaming faintly. And across the room, just a few feet from his bed, Ash sat upright, unmoving. The dog didn't flinch, didn't whimper, just watched. Amber eyes locked on him like they'd never closed. Tyler leaned forward, elbows on knees, head bowed into his hands. You saw it too, didn't you? He whispered. You heard it. Ash didn't move, didn't blink, didn't need to. Because somehow, in the thick heat of the dream and the even heavier quiet after it, Tyler knew the truth. That name didn't belong in sleep. It belonged to the dog across the room. He looked up slowly. His voice cracked as he said it, barely louder than breath. Wrecker? Ash shifted. Subtle. A twitch of the ears. A blink. Then still again. But the stillness was different now. Not resistance, but recognition. Tyler stood, crossing the floor on bare feet, and crouched beside the dog. You remember it, don't you? He murmured. Even when they buried it. You kept it. Ash leaned his head forward, pressing it softly into Tyler's chest. And Tyler, who hadn't cried in over a decade, closed his eyes and let the ache rise up his throat like water pressing behind a dam. He didn't sob, didn't tremble, just breathed. Rough, hollow, grateful. He whispered again, this time not as a question, but as a memory, returning to its name. Wrecker. Ash let out a low sound, not a growl, not a bark, something softer, like an exhale through time. Tyler rested his forehead against the crown of the dog's head, hands gently curled into the fur at the base of the neck. No one told them they belonged to each other. No one had to. Sometimes what war takes isn't blood. Sometimes it's names. And sometimes dogs remember what men forget. The soft hum of the monitor was the only sound in the darkened office. Harper Levesque sat hunched over her desk in the facility's back admin wing, long past lights out. Her uniform jacket hung from the back of her chair, sleeves wrinkled. A nearly empty coffee cup stood guard beside the keyboard, its contents cold and stale. Outside the window, the night pressed in like breath against glass. Somewhere in the kennel wing, a dog barked once, then stopped the kind of bark, not for threat or fear, but for memory. Harper rubbed her temples. On her laptop screen, rows of text scrolled past, coded in cold military formatting. Log numbers. Asset tags. Deployment orders. Most of them meant nothing, but one sequence had caught her eye earlier that afternoon when she ran a basic query out of curiosity. Now, at 1:43 a.m., curiosity had curdled into something else. Obsession. She tapped another key. A green terminal window blinked to life. Then a message. You're in 10 minutes max before timeout. Don't get cute. R. Harper allowed herself half a smirk. R, a.k.a. Ruben Tran, former defense contractor turned whistleblower, turned freelance cybersecurity nuisance, had owed her a favor since the FEMA dog deployment scandal in El Paso. She typed quickly. Search. K9. Asset. RZK. 17. Filter. Foreign deployment. Sexiers. Contractor linked. Unattached handler file. Override clearance. Archive. Deep. Halo. The system hesitated, then responded with a single line. Access granted. Limited time authorization. M. Her breath caught as the screen filled with a single document. One page, heavily redacted. She clicked. A header appeared at the top. Operation. Echo Vortex. Date range. Classified. Theater. Northern Syria. Commanding unit. Joint agency. Name withheld. Neuf asset designation. Heskediksept. Handler. None listed. Status. Reassigned. Deemed non-operational. Disposition. Unknown. The rest of the page was thick with black bars. Paragraphs reduced to shadows. Even the signature block was missing. Harper stared. No training records. No mission logs. No rotation history. Just an empty shell of a file. Like someone had gone out of their way to erase everything but the proof of its existence. She whispered under her breath. No handler? That didn't happen. Not with military dogs. Especially not ones assigned to active conflict zones. Every K9 had a handler, even temporary ones. Especially Black Ops K9, second, they were paired tighter than blood. If there was no name, it wasn't because no one was assigned. It was because someone had been deliberately removed. Her eyes scanned the file again. One word stood out. Reassigned. Reassigned where? When? To whom? She clicked Properties on the file. A hidden metadata string popped up. Original timestamp. 7 years ago to the day. Her fingers tightened around the mouse. The same time frame Tyler went off-grid after his injury in Fallujah. The same time frame Ash or Wrecker or whatever name had been taken from him had vanished from every known K9 training pipeline. Harper opened a second tab, accessing the facility's internal intake logs. She scrolled until she found the handwritten intake report from Ash's arrival. Found in contractor turnover kennel outside Mosul. No chip detected upon arrival. Scar on snout. Tactical collar removed prior to delivery. Oh. She clicked on the microchip number they later assigned during processing. It brought up a blank history. Domestic registration only added after the dog was stateside. That wasn't right. That meant he had no history until 3 months ago. Like someone had dropped him on the map just in time to avoid the questions. And then her phone vibrated. A message. From Ruben. Pull out. You're being flagged. You've got Dega Fedwar, you gain seconds max. She didn't hesitate. Harper screen captured the redacted file, disconnected from the server, and yanked the Ethernet cord like it was a lifeline. The screen went dark. She leaned back in her chair, pulse racing. Somewhere behind the government firewall, a trigger had been pulled. A trace started. A clock wound up. But what she had seen couldn't be unseen. Operation Echo Vortex. Erzet. No handler listed. And silence. Heavy, intentional, orchestrated silence. She looked across the room to where the collar now hung on a wall, Hook the one Tyler had found in his bag, the one neither of them remembered packing, marked with the same code, RZK-17. Harper stood slowly. She didn't need the system to confirm it anymore. The dog was never meant to be found, and whoever had buried his past hadn't counted on a blind Marine who could still see things no one else did. The morning air in southern New Mexico smelled of sun-warmed gravel and pine. A breeze cut through the training yard, carrying the dry rustle of mesquite. Tyler Kane walked slowly along the perimeter fencing, one hand lightly brushing the worn wood slats. His other held the leash slack, relaxed, as Ash moved in quiet step beside him. The German Shepherd was alert but calm, tail low, ears twitching only slightly. The facility was quiet this time of day. Most of the staff were inside. Just a few volunteers loitered at the far end of the yard near the fence, sipping from paper cups and talking about nothing important. Tyler exhaled slowly. Every step was measured. The sun on his face helped him feel centered, grounded, like gravity had found him again. Ash stayed close. He hadn't barked or lunged once since their first meeting. Some days he simply sat, watching. But today, he followed. Then it happened. Somewhere behind the equipment shed, a metal pipe slipped from its rack, the loud, piercing clang of aluminum striking concrete. Tyler froze. The sound didn't just echo, it detonated. In an instant, the leash snapped taut. Ash snarled a low, guttural eruption like something torn from a battlefield. The muscles beneath his shoulders rippled, and his body launched forward, dragging Tyler half a step before the man instinctively dropped into a crouch, one knee scraping earth. He was no longer in the yard. He was back in Fallujah. Dust, gunfire, a girl screaming in Arabic, the same metallic sound, a grenade pin clattering across tile. He hit the dirt, hands pressed flat. Ash lunged again, this time toward the sound's direction, not attacking, but protecting. Standing between Tyler and what he believed was a threat, from across the yard someone shouted, "Hey, get that dog under control!" Another voice, "He's gonna bite!" Phones were already up. A dozen angles. A dozen half-understood narratives forming in real time. But Tyler wasn't hearing them. He was hearing something else. A voice, not in English, not in memory, but in muscle, in the marrow. He didn't think. He just spoke. Bleeb. The words sliced through the chaos like a bell through smoke. Ash stopped mid-snarl, chest heaving, body trembling. But he didn't move. He didn't growl. He just stood, still, silent, tail low, eyes on Tyler, and slowly, as if surrendering to something older than instinct, he sat. The yard went quiet. The silence wasn't empty. It was reverent, disbelieving. Tyler rose slowly, hand out. Ash looked up at him, and then the dog did something he hadn't done for weeks. He blinked, then lowered his head. Submission not from fear, but from memory. Tyler swallowed hard. His heart was still pounding in his ears. But somewhere behind the roar of adrenaline was a whisper. A voice from another life. That word. Bleeb. He didn't remember learning it, didn't remember teaching it, but his body had known. Ash's body had remembered. It wasn't training. It was something deeper. Harper was already running from the main building, hair pulled back, phone in hand. "You okay?" she called. Tyler nodded, breath shaky. "Yeah." What the hell happened? He didn't answer right away. He was still crouched beside Ash, one hand resting on the dog's back. He didn't need to say it. She saw it. The footage hit the internet before sunset. One of the bystanders had uploaded a 37-second clip titled, "Blind Marine Calms, Violent, K9, with one word, no touch, no commands." By nightfall, it had over 600,000 views. News outlets clipped it, slowed it down, paired it with stock footage of military canine second, inspirational music, clickbait titles, "Miracle Bond," "Blind Veteran Controls," "Dangerous Dog Without Vision," "German Shepherd," once labeled untrainable, responds to one word in German. In the comments, people argued about whether it was staged. Others debated military training protocols, PTSD, the ethics of putting former war dogs in shelters. But beneath it all were the quiet ones, the veterans, the handlers, the people who knew. One comment stood out. That wasn't training, that was remembrance. You don't fake that look in a dog's eyes. Back at the facility, Harper sat with Tyler in the break room that night, replaying the clip silently. Ash lay curled at Tyler's feet, tail curled inward, breathing even. "You said a command in German," she said softly. Tyler rubbed his hands together. "I didn't think. It just came out." "It worked." He nodded. Harper leaned back in her chair. Her eyes weren't on the screen anymore. They were on the leather collar still sitting on her desk. "Tyler," she said carefully, "what if this wasn't an accident?" He didn't answer. But Ash stirred just slightly and moved his paw until it touched the toe of Tyler's boot. The smallest contact. Like a thread being rewoven, strand by strand. It started with a buzz. Not the kind from phones or bees, but the low, uneasy vibration that creeps under skin when something shifts in the air. Harper Levesque felt it the moment she walked into the main office that morning. Rosner's door was shut, blinds drawn rare. His secretary, June, looked up from her keyboard with a tight mouth and flickered eyes. "They're on the line again," June said, voice low. "Who?" June tilted her chin toward the door. "Someone from the DOJ." Said they're forwarding a directive from Homeland. Harper's stomach dropped. She stepped closer. What kind of directive? They didn't say, June whispered. Only that it involves Unit RZK-17 and a Category Red containment notice. Harper didn't wait. She pushed through Rosner's door without knocking. Inside, the facility director sat stiff back behind his desk, headset on, hands folded like he was trying not to crush the desk phone. His eyes flicked up as Harper entered, but he didn't wave her out. She stayed. His voice was calm, clipped. I understand, sir. But with respect, the animal in question is no longer... A pause. A muscle jumped in his cheek. No, sir. I don't believe he poses a risk to staff or public. Another pause. Then, yes, I'll comply. He hung up slowly. Saturday back. Ran a hand down his face like he could scrub the conversation off his skin. Harper didn't speak. Rosner exhaled. Not anger. Not defeat. Something in between. They want the dog, he said flatly. Immediately. Harper's heart pounded. Who's they? Joint Task Oversight. Interagency. The paperwork's bouncing through DOJ, DOD, and Homeland. She stepped closer. On what grounds? Rosner leaned back in his chair and turned the screen toward her. The order was short, stark. One line bolded in red. Subject designation RZK-17, classified as asset of national security concern. Retrieve for decommissioning immediately. Below that, a name she recognized from old training memos. Major Harlan K. Mercer. Her voice cracked. Decommissioning? Rosner nodded once. They mean euthanasia. Harper blinked, stepped back like the words had struck her. Number. They claim it's protocol. Too much risk if his background leaks. Apparently the video. She cut in. The video shows control. Obedience. That dog responded to his handler. Rosner's eyes narrowed. A handler, the system says, is blind and not certified. That dog attacked 3 officers before Tyler walked in, and hasn't harmed anyone since. Doesn't matter. That clip went viral. The wrong eyes saw it. They're spooked. Harper clenched her fists. Then let's show them the truth. Let us prove Tyler and Ash Recker are connected. That they belong together. Rosner stood, walked to the window. For a moment he didn't say anything, just stared out over the field, where Tyler was walking slowly beside the chain-link fence. Ash padded beside him. Ears turned toward his human like a compass to north. They gave us 48 hours, Rosner said finally. No more. Harper turned. That's not enough. Then make it enough. She swallowed the lump in her throat. I'm asking for 72. Harper. Give me 72 hours. That's all I'm asking. Let me run this out. Let me prove he's not dangerous. He's loyal. Let me prove they knew each other before the records vanished. Rosner looked at her. Long. Measuring. You believe that? I know it. He didn't answer right away. Then finally a sigh. 72 hours, he said. Not a minute more. After that, I can't stop them. You understand? I understand. She turned toward the door. Harper? She paused. If you're wrong and something happens, it's not just your job on the line. I know. And him? Rosner nodded toward the field. If this goes bad, are you ready to lose that dog? She hesitated. Then, quietly, I think losing him would be the last straw for both of them. And she left. That night, Harper sat on the edge of her cot in the admin quarters, knees drawn to her chest. Outside, the wind howled against the tin, sighing like a distant, angry memory. She held the old collar in her hands, the one with the brass letters EZ RZK-17, and turned it over and over. In the next room, Tyler sat in silence. Ash curled at his feet. Neither slept. Somehow, they both knew the clock had started ticking. Not just on a deadline, but on something deeper. Either the past would rise and speak for them, or it would bury them both for good. It was after midnight when Harper found a misfiled hard drive tucked behind an outdated fax machine, buried beneath a stack of to-be-shredded reports in the basement archive room of the facility. She hadn't meant to stay this late, but something in her gut, the same instinct that once made her pivot mid-sweep in Kandahar, just before the IED, wouldn't let her rest. Not with only 48 hours left on the clock, she wiped the dust from the casing. The label read, Minix Training Recordings, Batch 7D Audio Only. Handler, inactive. It didn't match any of the formats in the digital logs. No one had mentioned it. Probably forgotten. Or meant to be. She plugged it in. The screen blinked. 7 audio files, each dated between the 18th of August, the 2nd of September, 7 years ago. She clicked on the third one, a short burst of static. Then, Sitz, Platz, Nein, zurück. The voice was steady, sharp, firm, but not harsh, and unmistakable. It was Tyler Kane, not the Tyler she knew now, calm, measured, blind, but a younger version, confident, whole, giving commands in German with the ease of someone who lived them, not someone merely trained to repeat. The file played on, just 2 minutes long, filled with barks, the shuffle of paws on sand, and the thump of something likely a training dummy hitting the ground. Harper's pulse rose with each second. She clicked another file. Recker, halt. Bleib. Good boy. Good. Ah, that same voice. That same name. Her breath caught. The dog had a name long before the scars, before the behavioral tags, before the red stamp that read, unfit for duty. And Tyler had known it, but he didn't remember. 30 minutes later, she stood in the quiet of the dorm hallway, the flash drive in hand. Her knuckles tapped gently against Tyler's door. It was late, but something told her he was awake. He was, sitting on the edge of the bed, hoodie pulled over his head, Ash curled by his feet, head alert, as always. I found something, Harper said softly, stepping inside. I think you need to hear it. He turned toward her, brows furrowed beneath the shadow of the hood. What is it? She sat down, just outside his reach, plugged in the speaker, hit play. The voice filled the small room. Tyler froze, as if something deep beneath the skin remembered. He didn't speak, just listened. One file, then the next. Finally, Harper paused the third. Silence stretched between them like fabric pulled taut. Then he whispered, "That's my voice." She nodded, even though he couldn't see. Yes, another beat. But I've never trained a K9. At least, not officially. My records say I was supply detail in Kuwait. Never assigned to Echo Vortex. Never logged in to K9 Command. Harper tilted her head. Then, how do you explain this? I can't. He ran a hand over his face, voice raw. I don't remember saying those words. She leaned forward. But your voice does. He didn't reply, but Ash stirred, moved toward him, pressed his body into Tyler's thigh like an anchor. The room was still for a long time. Finally, Tyler said, "There was a week after the blast. I was pulled from the field, then reassigned. I don't remember much from then. Just smells, smoke, the sound of a door locking behind me." Harper looked up. "You think you were part of a black program?" "I don't know what to think," his voice cracked. "But if I trained him, if I named him, then why would they erase it?" Ash looked up then, right at him, and for the first time, Tyler turned his face toward the dog and whispered, "Recker." The dog didn't bark, didn't leap. He closed his eyes and leaned his head into Tyler's chest. It was the kind of stillness that felt like surrender, like remembering, like coming home. They sat like that for a while. The three of them, no orders, no commands, no questions. Just breath and heartbeat. The soft sound of a soldier and his shadow finding their way back across years of silence. Harper's voice broke the stillness. "There's more. I'm going to dig deeper." Tyler nodded. "But Tyler," she said gently, "if we find what I think we're going to find, it won't just be about the dog anymore." "I know. Are you ready for that?" He didn't answer at first, then reached down, ran his fingers along the worn fur of the dog, once called Ash. "I'm not sure I've ever been ready," he said, "but I think I'm finally willing." Harper stood. The clock was ticking, and they both knew it. As she reached the door, Tyler called after her. "Harper?" She turned. "Thank you for not giving up." She smiled, not out of victory, but understanding. Neither did he. The search began with a collar. The cracked leather band, worn soft from weather and war, still sat on Harper's desk, next to a chipped coffee mug and a stack of personnel reports yellowing at the corners. The brass initials EZ RZK-17 glinted faintly under her desk lamp, like something trying to remember its purpose. It wasn't a brand, she had confirmed that much. No manufacturer bore those initials, and RZK-17, the code on Ash's microchip, didn't match any civilian registry. But EZ kept tugging at her thoughts like a splinter beneath the skin. So she dug. She didn't start with databases. She started with people. Former handlers. Retired special ops techs. One of her contacts, an old logistics clerk from Germany, sent a file late at night with a single line in the subject. Don't ask how I got this, just read it. Inside was a redacted handler log. 5 entries. Only one legible. Ezrin. Unit. Ghost K9 program. Assigned. Op. Echo Vortex. Status. Unknown. Her heart skipped. Not a brand. Not a unit code. A name. Ezrin. She leaned back in her chair, slowly rubbing her temple. Ezrin. It felt strange on her tongue, like something that shouldn't be spoken aloud. But the deeper she searched, the more she found threads in long archived budget requests, in a decommissioned command center report, in the handwritten scrawl of a half-burned letter she recovered years ago from a base in Ramadi. Ezrin was not just a name. It was a cover, a designation used by a single handler embedded under false rank, reporting to no battalion, whose purpose was to train and field K9 Second under non-standard operating doctrine. Translation: off the books. Illegal. The Ghost K9 program. By the time the sun broke the edge of the pines outside the facility, Harper's screen glowed with a half-complete puzzle. She stared at a black and white photo, poorly scanned. A group of soldiers standing at attention. One man had his face turned just slightly away from the camera, but the posture, the nose, the chin. She froze. Kane? She whispered. But it wasn't Tyler. The caption read, Captain Joseph K. Warwick, Program Lead, Echo Vortex. Harper's eyes widened. That name Warwick had shown up once before, in Tyler's records, not as his superior, but as the officer who signed off on his medical discharge, a man supposedly long retired. She dug deeper. Buried in a side note under Ezrin's file was a linked alias. Ezrin equals Warwick. Warwick was Ezrin, the man who trained dogs in secret, the man who erased every record of what happened during Operation Echo Vortex, the man who released Tyler from service, the man who could have trained Ash and Tyler both. Harper stood, her breath suddenly shallow. Ash or Wrecker had never been violent by nature. He had been broken by design, trained to respond only to certain voices, to German commands layered with trauma. And Tyler had likely been a handler in that program. But the memories were gone. Not suppressed. Removed. She paced the room, phone in hand. Every contact she'd ever trusted echoed in her ear with caution. Ezrin's files are ghost tier. You dig into this, people are going to notice. He's dead or disappeared. Same thing. No one wants that door opened, Harper. But it was too late. The door wasn't just open. It had Ash's name carved into it. That afternoon, she found Tyler in the open-air courtyard, sitting beneath the old cedar tree. His posture was still. Ash rested at his feet. They looked like they belonged together, or maybe they once did. She sat beside him, letting the silence speak first. Then, quietly, I found him. Tyler turned his face toward her. Found who? Ezrin. The name made his body flinch. A subtle tension in the shoulders. A tightening in the jaw. She watched it all. He was a handler. Used only in covert ops. No direct rank, no unit assignment. His real name is Captain Joseph Warwick. Tyler's mouth opened, then closed. Warwick? He whispered. You know him. I think so. His voice wavered. He's the one who handed me my discharge file. I remember his boots before I remember his face. Harper nodded. He's the one who signed off on your psych eval. But he also ran the program. He trained Wrecker. Maybe trained you. Tyler's hands curled into fists. So why don't I remember? Because someone made sure you wouldn't. She pulled the old collar from her bag and handed it to him again. This belonged to both of you. The wind stirred the cedar leaves overhead. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Tyler said quietly, "You ever think some memories stay hidden because we're not meant to survive them?" Harper answered just as softly, "I think the ones we forget are the ones someone else didn't want us to survive." Ash looked up, eyes locked on Tyler's face, as if seeing the man he once followed into fire, as if waiting. And for the first time, Tyler said aloud the truth he hadn't dared name until now. "I wasn't just a Marine. I was a handler." Oh. The night the memories returned, there was no warning, no thunderclap, no scream, only a silence so dense it seemed to press against Tyler's skin. He sat alone in the facility's dim common room, an untouched cup of tea cooling by his side. Outside, rain fell in soft rhythms against the windows, masking the sound of his breath. Ash lay curled at his feet, but even the dog felt it some shift in the air. He lifted his head slowly, ears twitching, gaze fixed not on the door, but on Tyler. Tyler didn't know when he closed his eyes. He only knew what came next. In his mind, he was back in a hallway of smoke. Concrete fractured, the scent of cordite thick in the air. The world pulsed in slow motion, every sound muffled, like being underwater. His hands were gloved, his rifle slick with dust and sweat. "Ash, no." Wrecker moved beside him, tense but precise. A living shadow. They were in Fallujah. Number not Fallujah. Somewhere classified east of a village that didn't exist on any map. Echo Vortex. The name rang in his chest like an old church bell. Their objective had been simple: breach and extract intel from a suspected enemy compound. No civilian presence, no children. That's what Command said. But Command lied. It started with a sound. A small, high-pitched cry from beneath the rubble. He remembered stopping weapon up, body still. Wrecker froze too, head cocked, nose flaring. Then they heard it again. A whimper, barely human. He kicked aside a broken door. Wrecker darted ahead, nosing through fallen sheet metal and burning insulation. Then he halted. A little girl, no more than 6, blood on her temple, dust in her hair, crying so softly it sounded like she was apologizing to the air for existing. She wasn't supposed to be here. Tyler dropped to his knees, checked her breathing. Alive. Then the comm crackled. "Kane, where are you? Secure the target and fall back." But the target wasn't a laptop. It was her. "We have a child," he said into the radio. "Requesting medevac support now." Silence. Then, negative. "That's not part of the op. Leave her. Regroup." He stared at the girl and made a decision. He wrapped her in his vest, whispered broken Arabic to soothe her sobs. "You're safe. You're safe." Wrecker stood over them like a statue, one paw forward, hackles raised, scanning for threats. Then came the final order. "Kane, you leave now or you're off the mission." He didn't reply. Minutes later, the team was gone. So was the radio signal. So was Command. Tyler stayed until morning, shielding the girl through a second wave of shelling, feeding her his last ration bar, holding her tiny hand when the silence became unbearable. When medics finally came, local ones, not US, he turned her over, safe, breathing. But when he returned to base, there was no debrief, no commendation. Just a man in a dark uniform who said, "Your file is being reassigned. M." He didn't know then what that meant. Not until months later, when the nightmares began but no one believed they were real. Tyler woke with a gasp. His hand clutched the armrest of the chair like it was a lifeline. Ash was sitting now watching him. Not wagging, not blinking, just watching. "I remember," Tyler whispered. Ash rose slowly and rested his head against Tyler's leg. It was a small gesture, but it said everything. They had both been left behind. And now, both remembered. Later that day, Harper found him in the old records room, sifting through boxes with unseeing hands. "You found something," she said, voice careful. Tyler nodded slowly. His eyes glistened, not with tears, but something more hollow. "I disobeyed orders to save a child." Harper sat beside him, silent. "They didn't discharge me," he said. "They didn't court-martial me. They erased me." He held up a sheet. It wasn't even a real document, just a placeholder file marked Handler, unassigned, mission incomplete. They deleted the mission, scrubbed me clean, like I was the mistake. Harper swallowed hard. "You weren't." I wasn't the only one, he said, looking down at Ash. They erased him, too. Harper placed her hand gently on the worn collar that lay between them on the table. The brass letters EZ, RZK-17 seemed heavier now. Someone wanted this forgotten, she said. And someone, Tyler whispered, remembered just enough. Ash looked at them both, then turned toward the door, as if ready for what came next. The memories were no longer buried. The mission wasn't over. And this time, Tyler Kane would finish it on his own terms. The night air in Oak Ridge carried a warning. It wasn't the wind, though, it moved strangely, brushing the treetops in nervous circles. It wasn't the low buzz of the sodium lights humming over the facility parking lot. It was something else. A stillness that didn't belong. Tyler Kane stood just inside the back corridor of the facility's east wing. He wore a faded hoodie over his frame, the drawstrings slack, head bowed like a man praying before the storm. Beside him, Ash stood perfectly still. Not tense, not relaxed. Waiting. The sound came faintly at first, the low crunch of tires on gravel. Not loud, but deliberate. They were coming. Harper Levesque moved like someone who had done this before because she had. Not prison breaks, no, but extractions. Quiet ones. The kind where paperwork came after conscience. She ducked beneath the security camera and reached the maintenance gate. The padlock gleamed under the floodlight. A shiny lie pretending everything was secure. She pulled a set of bolt cutters from her jacket. They were old, the kind you borrowed once and never returned. Snip! The lock cracked in half with a sound that felt like gunfire in the silence. Harper winced. She didn't look back. Behind her, somewhere in the trees, another vehicle door shut. She turned toward the building and ran. Inside, Tyler was already at the door when she burst through. "You cut the lock?" he asked. She nodded, breath sharp. "We've got maybe 4 minutes." Tyler placed a hand on Ash's head, fingers grazing the edge of his fur like a memory he never wanted to forget. "No leash," he said. Harper smiled grimly. "He doesn't need one." Outside, a spotlight blinked on. The yard lit up in harsh white light, casting their shadows long against the pavement. Voices shouted in clipped commands. Unit 4, perimeter sweep. K-9 target confirmed inside. Tyler turned to Harper. "There's no turning back." She handed him a folded map, her hand trembling only slightly. "There's a cabin in Pine Hollow, my uncle's place. Off-grid, you'll be safe there. I've already cleared the route." "Come with us," Tyler said. But she shook her head. "They'll come after me too. I need to slow them down." "Ash won't go without you." She looked down at the dog. His eyes locked on hers, not a plea, not a demand, just recognition. "I'll find you," she promised. "I swear it." They moved quickly, but not carelessly. Every footstep was calculated, not rushed, not loud. Tyler walked with one hand lightly brushing the chain-link fence as a guide. He didn't need much more. Ash was beside him, body pressed, just close enough that the old rhythm kicked in, the way they used to move. A single body, split in two. At the edge of the lot, a searchlight swept past them. Tyler pressed his back to the wall. Ash crouched low without being told. His body became a shadow within a shadow. Harper's voice crackled in Tyler's earpiece. "They're sweeping the western corridor. You've got 90 seconds. Then, static. They reached the broken gate. Beyond it, the tree line shimmered with dew and darkness, but also freedom. Tyler stopped. Not from fear, not from doubt. Just to feel. The way the air smelled like pine and cold metal. The way Ash's shoulder trembled just slightly, not from panic but anticipation. The way his own pulse moved slower now than it had minutes ago. He knelt. Ash turned his head toward him. Tyler reached out with both hands and rested them on either side of the dog's face. His thumbs brushed over the ears. Familiar, solid. "I don't know how much of me you remember," Tyler said, voice quiet, "but I remember what matters now." Ash didn't blink, didn't breathe loud. He just listened. Tyler leaned forward until their foreheads touched. "Let's go home." They crossed the gate as a helicopter spotlight cracked the sky open behind them. Shouts rose. Subject moving south. Ash didn't run. He led. The trail wasn't paved. It was raw dirt and tangled roots. But somehow, they didn't trip. Tyler moved like he'd memorized the forest years ago. Maybe in some way, he had. Branches clawed at their sleeves. Bark tore skin, voices faded behind them. Every step forward was a step away from erasure. At the edge of the forest, as the sirens became whispers, Tyler collapsed against a mossy rock. Ash stood nearby, scanning. When he finally sat, tail curled at Tyler's boot. There was no sound, just the slow return of breath. Tyler whispered, "We're not fugitives." Ash looked up. "We're survivors." The ironwood forest didn't welcome visitors. It loomed, ancient and indifferent, its jagged trees clawing toward a bruised sky. The wind whispered secrets no man could decode. Cell phones died 5 miles back. The GPS gave up soon after, its screen frozen in a digital shrug. Out here, there were no shortcuts, only instincts. Tyler Kane stood on the edge of the tree line, the collar of his jacket turned up against the cold desert wind. His fingers brushed over Ash's shoulders as if reading a language only they knew. Each step they took was silent, deliberate. Footprints were devoured by sand almost immediately. Behind them, the last traces of man, light poles, barbed fences, concrete, faded into the copper dusk. Ahead, the ironwood stretched on like time itself. Harper Levesque's boots crunched softly over the grit and mesquite. She carried the topographic map in her left hand, the kind only rangers still used. But it was Ash, not the map she watched. The dog was no longer Ash, the aggressive rescue in a lockdown kennel. He was moving like a soldier again. Head low, shoulders shifting like gears, pausing at every scent junction, every wind shift. Then choosing. Tyler's voice came softly behind her. "He's tracking." Harper nodded. "It's how we trained them. Pattern recognition. Terrain memory. But this isn't a course. It's real." Ash paused, nose lifted, ears turned sharply east. He moved, and they followed. For a while, they moved without speaking. Just the rustle of packs, the groan of old ironwood branches above. Then Harper broke the silence. "We've got about 24 hours before they widen the search perimeter." Tyler's tone was unreadable. "They'll use thermal." "They'll try." She glanced toward Ash. "But if he keeps choosing terrain like this, ridgelines, rocky outcrops, breaks in canopy, they won't get a lock." Tyler touched the edge of a wind-polished boulder. He remembers evasion training. Harper didn't say anything for a moment. Then, "He remembers you, Tyler." Night fell in layers, not all at once. The stars came out hesitant, filtered through the thin veil of dust in the air. The moon rose low and orange, a silent sentinel overhead. Somewhere far behind them, an aircraft buzzed like a distant wasp, scanning. They set camp beneath a twisted Palo Verde, half hidden in a saddle between two slopes. Tyler gathered rocks by touch. Harper made a cold camp, no fire, just silence and breath. Ash lay at the edge of the clearing, ears up, eyes open. Harper handed Tyler a dented canteen. "Here." He took it. "Thanks." After a long silence, she asked, "You still don't remember the mission?" He shook his head slowly. "Pieces. A hallway. A girl crying. German commands. But the rest." His voice trailed off. Harper looked over at Ash. "I think he remembers enough for both of you." At 2:14 a.m., Ash stood suddenly. No sound had pierced the camp. No light, no movement. But Ash's body was a radar dish, tuned to a frequency neither human could sense. Then a low growl. Harper grabbed her pack. Tyler rose without a word. His boots moved with unhurried certainty. Ash had taught him this rhythm. Long ago. They moved southeast, away from the ridge, cutting between stone outcrops and yucca thickets. Behind them, the sound came barely a whisper. Crunch. Another. Boots. They reached a dry arroyo just as the wind picked up. Dust scattered like broken whispers across the ravine. Harper slipped once Ash turned. Waited. Then moved again. Tyler's hand was on Ash's back, guiding, trusting. Then a sound broke the quiet. "Kane, you don't know what you're carrying." A voice, tinny, male, amplified. "Give up the dog. There's a cure for what he is." Harper swore under her breath. "They found us." Ash stopped, turned, and growled. It wasn't the defensive growl of the shelter dog. It was the low, deliberate sound of something remembering what it had been made for. "What now?" Harper asked, heart hammering. Tyler reached down, fingers brushing the fur just above Ash's shoulder blade. Now we run like ghosts. They climbed until dawn, breath shallow, legs burning, eyes raw from grit. But the dog never faltered. His pace was steady, like he'd done this exact route before. Maybe he had. At the crest of the ridge, Harper collapsed behind a rock. Tyler dropped beside her. Ash stood at the edge of the bluff, his silhouette framed by the blood-orange sunrise. Below them stretched the rest of the forest, wild, untouched, and beyond that sanctuary. But for now, they were just three shadows caught between memory and pursuit. Tyler turned toward Harper. Still think he's just a dog? She looked up at Ash the way he stood against the light, as if guarding something sacred. No, she whispered. He's the only compass we've got left. The ridge at Hollow Mesa had always been a place of silence. A high, jagged plateau overlooking the desert basin below, where the wind carved stories into stone and buzzards circled slow over old bones. Now it was full of noise. Engines rumbled up the broken path. Helicopter rotors beat the air like war drums. Dust curled from tires, swallowing the sparse brush in a storm of movement. At the center of it all, three figures stood motionless, like monuments already carved in memory. Tyler Kane, Harper Levesque, and the dog called Ash. They had reached the mesa just after sunrise. Tyler, blind eyes shaded by his worn cap, could feel the openness around them. No walls, no fences, only sky. The wind smelled of iron and creosote. The quiet here was different, not the suffocating quiet of his cabin or the institutional hush of the facility. It was the quiet of a last stand. Harper set down the transmitter, a heavy black case with a blinking red light connected to a satellite uplink and live stream relay she'd routed through a backdoor channel overnight. No government lockout could silence it now. She checked her watch. 3 minutes, she whispered. That's all we need. Tyler nodded. Then let them come. The first SUV crested the ridge at 6:17 a.m., then another. Then 3 blacked-out vehicles with no tags, and the hard silhouettes of uninvited authority. Federal agents, Special Task Enforcement Unit, weapons slung low, faces unreadable. They fanned out across the ridge with practiced precision. One man stepped forward, tall, clean-shaven, with a throat mic and too many stars on his lapel. He held out a gloved hand. "Mr. Kane," he called. "Step away from the dog." Ash didn't move. Harper flipped the final switch on the transmitter. The red light turned green, and somewhere, 100 screens blinked to life. "I'm not stepping away from him," Tyler said quietly. "And he's not a dog. Not the way you mean it." The agent's eyes flicked to Harper. "You're broadcasting. Shut it off." Harper didn't answer. She lifted the microphone. "This is Harper Levesque, former U.S. Army K-9 rehabilitation officer. What you're seeing is not a rogue operation. It's evidence. Evidence of a black site program, Project Echo Vortex, that erased the identity of both soldiers and their dogs." Ugh. She turned the camera toward Tyler. "This is Staff Sergeant Tyler Kane, blinded in service, discharged without record. He was declared never deployed. But that's a lie. We found his voice on a command file. We found his collar in a sealed duffel. And this," she turned the lens toward Ash, "this is RZK-17, also known as Wrecker, a classified K-9 asset buried by the system that trained him." "Enough," the agent barked. 2 officers moved forward. Ash stepped in front of Tyler. He didn't bare his teeth. He didn't growl. He simply stood, still, steady, like he had that day in the shelter, like a soldier returning to post. The air changed. The agents hesitated. Because something in that dog's stillness spoke louder than the rifles they carried. Tyler lifted his chin, blind eyes fixed on a place only memory could see. "You trained him to follow orders, but you forgot he also learned loyalty." A beat. "You trained me the same way." The wind blew ash, gray dust over their boots. "Wrecker," Tyler said softly. Ash's ears flicked. "Bleeb." The word echoed across the ridge German. A command. Stay. And Ash obeyed. Not because he had to, but because he chose to. A murmur rose from the edges of the crowd. Camera drones from local news crews now hovered like silent birds, drawn by the stream Harper had triggered. Online, comments flooded in. This is real? That's the dog from the shelter video. Blind veteran stops trained attack K9 with a word again. The standoff wasn't covert anymore. It was public. And the narrative was shifting. The agent stepped back, pressed 2 fingers to his earpiece, face tight with conflict. "Sir," he began, but his words were swallowed by static. Then, another sound cut through the air. A second vehicle arrived. Not federal, not tactical. Civilian. Old. Dented. With a small flag wedged in the window. From it stepped a woman in a blazer and boots, flanked by 2 aides and a cameraman. Congresswoman Lita Hart. Veteran advocate. Outspoken. Uninvited. She looked at Ash, then at Tyler, and finally at the agents. "You want to arrest a blind vet and his dog on live television?" she said calmly. "Be my guest, but you'd better explain why you buried them first." The man in charge froze. The moment stretched thin. Then he stepped back, signaled his men. Retreat. No apology, no words. Just boots crunching over gravel as they withdrew into their black vehicles, swallowed again by dust and heat. Harper exhaled. Tyler's hand rested on Ash's shoulder. The dog looked up, not for command, for connection, and Tyler gave it. "You did good, buddy." Harper smiled, eyes glassy with something she didn't name. "This isn't the end," she whispered. "No," Tyler said, lips tight. "But it's the first time we've been seen." The wind carried the scent of rust and pine as dusk settled over the mesa. The confrontation had ended hours ago, but something heavier than silence lingered. Tyler sat alone on a weathered bench just outside the ranger station that now served as temporary refuge. His fingers ran slowly along Ash's collar, the cracked leather, the brass initials, EZRZK-17. Wrecker, he thought. The name still echoed inside him like a whisper behind a locked door. Ash lay by his feet, not asleep, just listening. Always listening. Footsteps approached on gravel firm, measured, boots that knew how to hold ground. Harper's voice broke the stillness. "He's here." Tyler turned his head slightly. "Who?" She didn't answer, just stepped aside. The man who entered the frame moved like memory, made flesh. Broad-shouldered, graying at the temples, with a jaw that looked carved out of stone and eyes that had seen too much. Colonel Raymond Ellison, retired, forgotten by some. Not by Tyler. Tyler stiffened instinctively. His throat tightened. He didn't stand something in his chest, wouldn't let him. "Colonel," he said quietly. The older man gave a slow nod, his voice roughened by time but still sharp. "Kane." Ellison looked at the dog first, then at the scar along Tyler's temple, then at the silence in between them. "I watched the live feed," he said. "Didn't believe my own eyes. Thought they buried it too deep to ever crawl back up." They tried," Harper said, standing just behind Tyler. "But not deep enough." Ellison took a breath. Saturday on the bench beside Tyler, close, but not too close. A soldier's distance. "I came to tell you something, Kane. Not as command, as a man who owes you the truth." Tyler tilted his head slightly. "I'm listening. You were part of Ghost Unit. Shadow operatives. No flags, no medals, no funerals." The words landed like quiet detonations. "You were deployed into conflict zones before the news cameras ever arrived. Fallujah, Kandahar, Juba, places even the Pentagon kept off maps. And with you," he looked down at Ash, "was a K9 asset called RZK-17, a long breath. You named him Wrecker." Tyler's hands curled into his lap as if trying to hold the pieces of something breaking open. "I trained him?" he asked, voice almost childlike in its ache. "You didn't just train him," Ellison said. "You bonded with him, broke through things nobody else could. You were one of the only handlers cleared for Tier 1 neurosync." Harper leaned forward. "What's that?" "Experimental link protocols," Ellison said. "Used voice, scent, even heart rate patterns. The idea was to make man and dog react as one. Instant command, reflex before logic." Tyler shook his head slowly. "I don't remember any of it." "You're not supposed to," the colonel said. "That was the price of the program." Harper frowned. "They erased him?" Ellison nodded grimly. Mission after Fallujah went sideways. Civilian got caught in the crossfire. Kane disobeyed a stand-down. Stayed to extract the child. Saved her. But the op was unsanctioned. No cover. No camera. Just smoke and rubble. He looked directly at Tyler now. They called it insubordination. They couldn't charge you without revealing the program. So they did what they always do to ghosts. He tapped 2 fingers to his own temple. They scrubbed you. Ugh. Tyler didn't move for a long moment. Then, he whispered. "The girl," she cried in my dreams. Smoke. Screaming. I could never see her face. Ellison lowered his voice. "She lived. Because of you. Her name's Alira. She's 12 now. Adopted. Safe." Something broke in Tyler then. Not loud. Not visible. Just a silent cracking beneath the ribcage. Ash rose to his feet and pressed against Tyler's leg, not nudging, not kneading, just present. And for the first time since the raid on Hollow Mesa, Tyler reached down and held onto the dog like a man grasping a railing in a storm. Harper watched it all unfold, the quiet reunion between soul and truth. She took a slow step forward. "Why now?" she asked Ellison. "Why come out of hiding?" Ellison's eyes darkened. "Because the ones who built Echo Vortex are still operating. They don't just want to silence Kane. They want to recover the dog." "Why?" Tyler asked, his voice steadier now. Ellison looked at him. "Because Wrecker isn't just any dog. He was Phase 3. Harper's brow furrowed. "Meaning?" Ellison stood. "Phase 3 was self-adaptive memory and intuitive combat. Dogs who didn't need constant commands they learned through exposure. That's why you didn't need to retrain him. His instincts remembered even when you couldn't." Ash looked up at the colonel as if understanding every word. Tyler exhaled, slow and full of weight. "And now?" Ellison turned to go but stopped and said over his shoulder, "Now they'll come harder. You made them bleed in public. That's not something they forget." He paused. "But neither do ghosts." The sky above the mesa faded into blue ink and stars. Tyler remained on the bench long after the colonel's truck disappeared down the trail. Ash didn't leave his side. And for the first time, Tyler whispered the name not like a mystery, but a memory. "Wrecker?" The dog looked up, and something in his gaze said, "Welcome back." The news cycle did not roll, it roared. By dawn, the standoff at Hollow Mesa had been clipped, captioned, slowed, and splashed in across every major feed in the country. Blind veteran, expose secret, K9 program, Wrecker. Classified war dog or government cover-up? On the west-facing porch of the ranger station, Harper Levesque watched the story she had birthed spin beyond her reach. Each ping on her phone felt like distant artillery. New share, new headline, new fury. The algorithm did what bureaucracy never could. It forced people to look. Inside, Tyler sat at a small wooden table, Ash stretched beneath his feet, a silent sentinel. The morning sun cut bars of gold across the floorboards, painting man and dog in light that felt almost holy. Harper stepped in, holding her phone like a live coal. "CNN picked it up," she said, voice a half-whisper. So did Reuters, AP, even The Guardian overseas. Tyler lifted his face toward her words. He did not smile. He only breathed a little deeper, as though the weight in his chest had shifted from private burden to public evidence. "They can't bury it now," he murmured. But Harper's eyes were elsewhere on the small, scuffed flash drive in her palm. 8 gigabytes that could crack open everything. Handler logs, erased audio, the caller's metadata, Colonel Ellison's sworn deposition. "Proof. You ready?" she asked. Tyler laid a hand on Ash's back. "As ready as I'll ever be." The newsroom of the Arizona Ledger thrummed with fluorescent urgency. Reporters darted between desks, chasing angles, confirming quotes. Screens flickered in a dozen languages. Somewhere, a coffee machine hissed like a steam vent on a submarine about to dive. Harper stood just inside the security gate, hair pulled into a tight knot, ball cap low. Beside her, Tyler's posture was straight a Marine reporting, even without the uniform. Ash padded at his heel, vest marked service dog, do not pet. Still, every passing intern slowed, eyes wide, mouths parted. A woman approached early 40s, dark curls pinned up, press badge swinging. Delia Porter, senior congressional correspondent and Pulitzer finalist. She offered Harper a firm handshake. "You said you had more than the live stream." Harper passed the flash drive across. "Everything the public saw was the tip. This is the iceberg. Delia glanced at Tyler. You comfortable going on record? Tyler nodded once. I'm done being a ghost. They moved to a glass-walled interview booth. Cameras waited, lenses like unblinking eyes. Delia plugged in the drive. A directory bloomed on her monitor. Audio files, scans of redacted memos, a photograph of a 6-year-old girl wrapped in a desert poncho, alive. Delia's breath hitched. This is incendiary. Harper folded her arms. It's the truth. Delia's exclusive went live at 12:07 p.m. MDT. The headline was simple: Ghost Unit exposed. Inside America's erasure program. Within 10 minutes, every major cable panel had booked a segment. By lunchtime, number Ghost Unit trended above celebrity divorces and playoff scores. The story did not divide along party lines. It cut deeper into veteran forums, K9 advocacy pages, survivor networks. Screens in airport terminals looped the clip of Tyler's calm German command, Ash's instant obedience, the agent's retreat. Viewers leaned closer, as if rewatching might unlock a secret code. The studio lights baked the small room in fake daylight. Tyler sat opposite Delia, earpiece fitted, Ash at his side like a living exclamation mark. Harper stood behind the camera, heart pounding harder than any firefight she'd survived. Delia leaned in, voice gentle but relentless. Staff Sergeant Kane, did you knowingly participate in an off-books program called Echo Vortex? I participated, Tyler said, not knowingly. And when you realized civilians were in the kill zone? I chose the child over the objective. His voice did not waver. Wrecker chose with me. Delia turned to the dog. Ash watched her, unblinking. What do you want now? Tyler's answer was soft, almost prayed. Accountability. For every erased handler, every silenced dog, every mission that never made the news. Harper watched through the glass. The control room tech whispered, Phones are lighting up. She closed her eyes, just for a second, letting the tide of consequence wash over her. A staffer burst into Representative Lita Hart's office. Ma'am, you need to see this. Screens showed Tyler's interview. Hart's expression hardened. Draft the subpoena list. We open hearings Monday. Across the hall, Defense Committee phones rang off their hooks. Lawyers whispered about damage control. Somewhere in a basement briefing room, a cold voice instructed an assistant to find every file labeled Ezrin and burn it. But another aide spoke up. Too late, sir. They're already in the cloud. The desert blazed pink and gold when Harper and Tyler returned. Reporters waited beyond the tape line, cameras rolling. Tyler raised a hand, no statement, just acknowledgement. He and Ash slipped inside. The door shut, muffling the clamor. Harper leaned against the wall, exhaustion carving deep under her eyes. Tyler joined her, the hush between them thick with shared relief and looming battles. She exhaled. We just detonated a truth bomb. Collateral damage? He asked. Probably. She managed a weary smile. But sometimes you knock walls down so light can get in. Ash nudged Tyler's hand. Tyler knelt, whispering into warm fur. Good boy. We're seen now. Ems. Harper looked out the window at the gathering night. Cameras still flashing. But she saw something beyond them, threads of justice forming in the dark. First salvo fired, she said. Now we hold the line. Tyler rose. Shoulders squared against the coming storm. We've stood in worse places. And the three of them, soldier, whistleblower, war dog, walked toward the low light of the ranger kitchen, where the coffee was burnt and the path ahead uncertain. But the silence between heartbeats finally felt like truth. The morning sky over Fort Huachuca wore the pale blue of old denim, washed and mended by countless dawns. A thin breeze rattled the flag halyard, sending a metallic clink across the parade ground like a muted bell calling strays home. Rows of folding chairs dotted the concrete apron. No brass band, number 21 gun salute, just a small podium, a color guard, and 50 observers who understood that some ceremonies are kept spare so the truth can echo. Tyler Kane stood alone near the reviewing stand. Dress blues replaced his worn hoodie. The uniform fit a bit tighter across the shoulders, looser at the waist. A new ribbon bar gleamed bronze star with V device, updated just last night. His white cane leaned against his leg, but his posture needed no support. Beside him sat Ash Wrecker Tail, curled neatly, ears forward, body still. A custom-stitched vest hugged his frame. In gold thread, beneath the American flag patch, 4 words: Retired Combat, K9 RZK-17. Every pair of eyes drifted to that vest, then to the scar across the dog's muzzle, and finally to the calm in his stance. He didn't fidget. He didn't scan. He simply waited, like he'd been waiting 7 years for this hour. Harper lingered at the back of the seating area. Civilian blazer, crisp camera crews, kept at bay by a single whipcord strand of rope. She caught Tyler's profile in the early light, jaw clenched. Lips pressed, but the hard lines couldn't hide the quiet relief softening the corners of his mouth. The PA crackled to life. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party. Boots marched in precise cadence. Colonel Raymond Ellison led the small procession, retired no more, recalled to pin a final medal on the man he once mentored. Behind him strode Congresswoman Lita Hart, her expression stone fierce in the face of the cameras. A Pentagon liaison flanked them, holding a leather portfolio thick with amended paperwork. Color guard posted. The flag rose. Then silence reclaimed the ground. Colonel Ellison stepped to the mic, voice hoarse but resonant. Today, we correct a record, not with fanfare, but with truth. He glanced at Tyler, then at Ash. Staff Sergeant Tyler James Kane, United States Marine Corps. Your actions on the 18th of September, during the classified engagement known as Echo Vortex, saved innocent life at risk to your own. For that valor, your discharge status is hereby updated to honorable, and your decorations restored, including the Bronze Star for heroic service. A staff sergeant in dress greens approached, holding a tri-folded flag. Ellison accepted it, turned, and placed it in Tyler's hands. For sacrifices we once denied, we now offer a nation's gratitude. Tyler's throat tightened. Fingers brushed rough fabric, memorizing every fold. He swallowed hard and whispered, "Thank you, sir." Ellison wasn't finished. Furthermore, by joint directive of the Department of Defense and Department of Homeland Security, K9 asset RZK-17 is officially declassified. His service record will reflect full combat status, with retirement benefits equivalent to military working dogs under Public Law 116 to 182. A murmur rippled through the crowd, reporters scribbling, veterans nodding, a couple wiping eyes. Ellison knelt, old knees creaking, to face the dog. "Wrecker, you came home." Ash cocked his head, then leaned forward and pressed his nose to the colonel's hand. A simple acknowledgement, a soldier's salute. The Pentagon liaison stepped up, handing Tyler the portfolio. He opened it by field pages thick with amended orders, commendations, medical coverage, back pay. But the paper that mattered most was a single sheet at the front. File correction complete. Handler, Kane, TJ. K9, Risk 17 Wrecker. His name and the dog's linked again in black ink that no one could erase. Ellison cleared his throat. "Staff Sergeant, the microphone is yours." Tyler hesitated, then stepped forward. The cane clicked twice on concrete. Ash matched the pace perfectly, settling at parade rest beside him. He faced the unseen crowd. Let the silence settle. "I used to think blindness was the worst thing that happened to me," he began, voice steady. "Turns out being forgotten hurt more." He paused, feeling the word sink in. But a dog remembered. When the system said we didn't exist, he waited. He carried the truth in muscle and bone and wouldn't let it die. He reached down, fingers brushing the vest. "I called him Wrecker because he'd run through walls to get to me. Today, he tore down the last one." Camera shutters clicked. Somewhere, a veteran sniffed back tears. Tyler's final words cut quiet and clear. "If you're wearing a scar, nobody sees human. Or K9 know this. You are not broken. You are loved. You can come home." He stepped back. Applause rose, not thunderous, but deep, layered with respect. The kind of clapping that says, "Welcome back." Ash didn't bark. He simply sat taller, eyes on his handler, tail thumping once against the concrete heartbeat made visible. Harper watched, hand over her mouth. Tears she'd sworn she wouldn't shed blurring the scene. Delia Porter's camera found her. She didn't care. Truth deserved witnesses. The color guard presented arms. A single bugle played "Homeward Bound," its notes floating over the parade ground, mingling with desert wind. Tyler knelt, unlatched the vest buckle, and whispered to Ash, "At ease, buddy." The dog licked his hand once, then pressed his head to Tyler's chest. Colonel Ellison saluted. Congresswoman Hart followed. One by one, every uniformed soul on the field raised a hand to brow. Even the cameramen lowered their lenses. For a brief instant, time stilled. A forgotten Marine and a forsaken dog stood at the center of a nation's slow redemption, names restored, records mended, invisible wounds acknowledged beneath the open sky. And in that quiet, the words carved themselves on every present heart. You were never broken. You were always ours. Welcome home. The sign went up at first light hand-carved cedar, letters burned in with a soldering iron borrowed from the ranger station. Redemption Field, recentering dogs, veteran one step, one breath. It wasn't straight. The post leaned a hair west where the soil gave under its weight. But Tyler Kane insisted it stay that way. Perfect things break too easy, he'd said, palm pressed to the rough grain. So, the sign stood a little crooked, true to the land it claimed. Redemption Field had once been a bankrupt riding stable 30 miles outside Tucson. 3 sagging barns, 2 paddocks gone to knee-high foxtail, and a cinder block office that smelled of hay dust and forgotten tack. The bank sold it at auction for less than the price of a new patrol dog. Harper signed the deed with hands that still shook from capital hearings. Tyler paid the back taxes out of his reinstated salary. Ash brought only his presence, wandering each empty stall as if cataloging ghosts. They opened the main gate that morning. Rusted tubing clanged like a cracked bell, then just waited. No ribbon cutting, no mayor, no reporters. Word of mouth would do. Sometimes the broken found the broken without directions. The first truck rumbled up the gravel drive. A Vietnam-era Ford, paint sun-bleached to a tender blue. Engine knocking in the rhythm of old hearts. Luis Vega climbed out, retired mechanic, broad-shouldered, silver beard braided beneath a denim collar. He'd watched the Hollow Mesa feed and driven 2 states to volunteer. Brought tools, welding rods, a half smile. Fence line shot, he said, patting the post. We kept it honest, Harper answered, mirroring the grin. Together they started sinking new cedar stakes. Luis showing Harper how to angle each post into the prevailing wind. Tyler trailed the perimeter, counting steps, letting his fingers skim the wire. Ash paced just ahead, nose low, tail swishing contentment into the dust. Sophie Ruiz arrived next, third-year vet student, hair tucked in a messy bun, eyes bright despite a 4-hour drive and finals looming. She carried a cardboard box filled with antiseptic, syringes, heartworm meds, and a single jar of homemade peach jam. For morale, she said, cheeks flushing when Harper hugged her. Tyler guided Sophie across the yard to the old feed room, now a makeshift clinic. Sunbeams fanned through cracked boards, striping the walls gold. Sophie set her box on a splintered counter and ran a hand over the surface like a blessing. Give me 2 weeks, and this'll smell like iodine and fresh gauze instead of mice. Sounds perfect, Tyler said. Ash poked his head through the doorway, sniffed the air, and sneezed. Sophie giggled. The sound floated out and made Luis look up from his digging. They broke for lunch beneath an ancient mesquite whose limbs curved like open arms. Harper passed around paper-wrapped sandwiches. Luis told a story about rebuilding a 2067 Impala with bolts he'd filed by hand after parts dried up. Sophie laughed, mouthful of turkey and mustard. Tyler sat cross-legged in the patchy shade, feeling the hum of conversation more than hearing it. Ash lay on his belly, chin on Tyler's boot, the vest gleaming. Retired Combat K9, RZK 17. Harper raised a bottle of water toward the dog. To the one who remembered for us. Ash's ear twitched. He didn't move. Tyler lifted his own bottle, blind eyes shining. 2 new fields. Plastic clicked like light glass. Wind rustled the mesquite, scattering pale seeds that spun downward, and for a heartbeat, everything felt suspended, as if the world itself paused to witness their small communion. They tackled the main barn next. Luis pried open warped stall doors. Sophie swept decades of dust into wheeling sunlight. Harper climbed a ladder to replace cracked skylight panes, glass glittering like cold river water. Tyler hauled wheelbarrows of old bedding to a burn pile, Ash trotting beside, mapping the route until man and dog moved as one continuous piston. At one stall, Tyler stopped. The wooden nameplate read, Tango, Explosives K9, a future resident arriving next week. He traced the carved letters, felt the past and future overlap like transparent maps. "Another ghost?" he asked quietly. Harper wiped sweat from her brow. "A young one. Still believes in thunder. We'll teach him rain first," Tyler said. Ash pressed against his leg. Affirmation made flesh. Sunset burned the mountains mauve. The day's last chore was renaming the barns. They chose simple words with weight: asterisk, haven for intake, and quiet observation. Asterisk, forge for training, tempering fear into skill. Asterisk, hearth for living quarters. Bunks, a kitchen, a porch wide enough for stories. Tyler painted the letters in thick strokes, guided by Harper's steady hand over his. For hearth, he paused, felt the wet paint on his fingertips. "Home," he whispered. "Home," Harper echoed. Ash barked once soft, approving. Stars pricked the velvet sky. A campfire crackled in a corroded oil drum near the fence line. They sat around it, 5 souls, and 1 dog faces washed amber by flame. No speeches, no schedules. Just crackle, night breeze, and the soft click of Ash's tags when he shifted closer to Tyler's knee. Harper pulled a folded sheet from her jacket. A list of dogs slated for euthanasia across 3 states. 32 names. She laid it near the firelight, didn't read them aloud. They all understood. Luis broke the silence. "Fence'll hold by week's end. After that, we bring them." Sophie nodded. "I'll have vaccinations ready." Tyler rested a hand on Harper's shoulder. "And we'll give them what no file ever could." "What's that?" she asked. He turned his face to the warmth of the flames. "Belonging." Ash exhaled a low sigh, content. In the distance, coyotes sang to the crescent moon, but their song felt less like warning and more like welcome. Redemption Field breathed for the first time, uneven, hopeful, human. Crooked sign, crooked past, straight purpose. And as embers spiraled into the dark, Tyler whispered to the dog who had led him back from erasure. "Tomorrow we start again, Wrecker." Ash lifted his head, eyes reflecting starlight, tail thumping once against the earth, heartbeat echoing the promise that, here, second chances had finally found their ground. The morning broke pale and cool, dawn light spilling across Redemption Field like a whispered promise. Tyler Kane's breath ghosted in the air as he tightened the gate latch. Ash trotted beside him, each footfall silent on frost, dusted soil. Today, the sanctuary would earn its name. The first rescue was on the way. An old livestock trailer rumbled up the drive, engine coughing through gears. On the cab door, someone had painted Pima County Animal Control in flaking blue letters. Luis waved the truck forward, wrench still tucked behind one ear. Harper stood near the barn, clipboard clutched, trying and failing to keep her pulse from sprinting. The trailer door creaked open. A handler in tan coveralls guided down a lanky German Shepherd black sable coat dull, left rear leg favoring a stiff, cautious limp. Fear flickered in wide brown eyes. The intake form read, "Name, Tango. Age, 3 years. Service, explosives. Detection, private contractor. Incident, IED blast, minor shrapnel. Handler, Kaya. Behavioral note, severe startle reflex. Kennel spinning. Trust deficit." Tango skittered on the ramp, nails scraping metal. The handler tightened the lead with a sigh. "He's yours now. Vet cleared him to travel, but he's wired tight." Tyler stepped forward. "We'll take it from here." His voice held the gentle gravity of someone who stood where the dog trembled. He unhooked Tango's lead, handed it back, then crouched low, letting the young shepherd sniff the air between them. Ash approached from behind, body loose, tail hanging like a lazy pendulum. He didn't crowd. He just circled once, close enough for Tango to catch his scent war smoke. Prairie grass, something older than both. Tango's ears flicked. He didn't growl. He simply watched. Ash turned, trotted toward the oval dirt track that ringed the paddock, and without looking back began to walk. Tango stared. "Muscles taut," Tyler whispered. "Go on, boy. It's a good trail. No command, no leash, just invitation." The young shepherd took one tentative step, then another. The limp slowed him but did not stop him. 20 feet ahead, Ash kept steady pace, neither urging nor waiting, just being. A moving anchor. Harper and Sophie leaned on the fence rail, silent observers. They watched as Ash led Tango along the outer curve, past the sentinel ironwoods and the half-repaired jump rails. At first, Tango's gait was uneven, head-dipping each time the injured leg hit ground. But Ash's rhythm was patient, almost metronomic, one lap then two. Dust rose in soft plumes that turned gold in the slanted sun. Harper exhaled. "He's mirroring." Sophie nodded, eyes shining. "Dogs calibrate to each other's stride. It's how packs conserve energy." Oh. On the third lap, a sharp clap echoed Luis dropping a board on the workbench. Tango flinched hard, sidestepped into a shallow crouch, eyes darting. Ash slowed, curved back, positioned his body between the noise and the younger dog. No bark, no hackles, just presence, a living windbreak. Tango's breathing steadied. After a moment, he licked Ash's muzzle quick, nervous, and resumed the path. The limp remained, but the panic had ebbed, replaced by a hesitant trust. Tyler waited at the gate where the track ended. As the pair approached, he knelt, palm open. Ash stopped beside him. Tango halted a full body, length behind, unsure. "It's okay," Tyler murmured, scenting the earth, listening to hoofbeats that weren't there. He extended his hand. Tango sniffed, tongue flicking. Tyler shifted slightly, offering his shoulder. The dog stepped forward, ran his nose along the sleeve, then rested his chin there as if measuring the distance between terror and safety. Harper clicked her stopwatch. 9 minutes, she whispered, from trailer to first touch. She'd seen therapy programs stretch that to weeks. Ash lay down, forepaws crossed. Tango mirrored the position, less graceful, but earnest. Dust settled around them like a benediction. They moved Tango to Haven, the quiet barn stall, freshly bedded with pine shavings. Sophie knelt to check the shrapnel scar along his thigh, humming faintly. Luis raff nails into a new gate latch a few stalls over. The steady percussion seemed to soothe rather than startle. Ash stood at the stall door, watching. Not supervisor, not sentinel, more like elder brother waiting outside a pediatrician's office. When Sophie finished, she gave Tyler a thumb up. "Ligament sound, just needs muscle rebuilding and confidence." Tyler unclipped Ash's vest, letting him enter the stall. The older dog lay in the corner, eyes half-lidded. Tango walked a slow circle, sniffed each wall, then curled against Ash's flank like a satellite docking to its station. Two hearts found a single cadence. Tyler's chest tightened. He felt it under his palm, belonging, invisible but firm. The same gift Ash had once given him. He whispered, "Welcome home, Tango." Dusk draped lavender across the paddock. Harper logged the day's notes at the porch table, lantern hissing. Tyler sat on the step, Ash at his right knee, Tango at his left. The young shepherd dozed, twitching paws, chasing dream rabbits. Harper closed her notebook. "First day, and he's already sleeping outside a kennel. Grace travels faster than fear," Tyler said. Ash lifted his head, eyes reflecting lantern light. Tyler scratched the soft fur behind the bent ear, an old gesture, a new chapter. Tango sighed in sleep, body settling deeper into dust. Wind rustled the crooked Redemption Field sign. Somewhere, an owl called. The desert night felt less empty, as if one more story had been stitched into its quilt of quiet. Harper looked at the trio silhouetted against starlight, the veteran, the sentinel, and the novice stitched together by a thread no scalpel could sever. She whispered to the dark, "One step, one breath," and the field, imperfect and honest, breathed back. Moonlight silvered the scrub plain, turning every tumbleweed into a drifting ghost. From the wide porch of hearth, the living barn at Redemption Field, Tyler Kane could feel the desert breathing. The wood beneath him still held a hint of afternoon heat, but the night air cooled his cheeks, carrying juniper and distant rain. Ash lay stretched across the top step, chin on crossed paws, eyes half closed yet vigilant in that warrior at rest way. A yard beyond, Tango dozed inside the rail fence, flank rising and falling with the easy rhythm of earned sleep. Harper Levesque eased down beside Tyler, denim brushing denim. She offered a chipped enamel mug filled with chamomile and honey. Tyler's fingers wrapped around it, finding the handle by instinct. Steam drifted upward like a faint prayer. For a while, they said nothing. Silence, they had learned, was a language of its own one. The dogs seemed to understand better than humans. Crickets trilled. A lone coyote yipped, and was answered, far off. Overhead, constellations Tyler could no longer see wheeled slowly toward dawn. Finally he spoke, voice quiet as the wind's edge. "You know what I told him that day in the street?" Harper turned, freckles catching starlight. "What day?" "Tucson," he said. "Downtown, when the dumpster lid slammed, and Tyler's hand lifted in a small arc. When Wrecker came apart." She nodded, remembering the viral footage, the shouted chaos, the single German word that stitched dog and handler back together. Tyler's fingers tapped the mug once. "Everyone heard me command him, Blybe. But right after, when I knelt, there was something softer." He paused, searching the darkness behind his eyes. "I whispered, 'Go home.'" Harper exhaled, a whisper in return. Tyler's mouth curved, half sadness, half wonder. "That's what I told him when the unit left us in the rubble, too. The night I stayed with the girl." He tilted his head, listening to a memory only he and the dog shared. "He didn't go then. He stayed. But I think the words stuck inside him. Waiting." Harper's voice was almost a smile. "And when you said them in Tucson?" "He finally could," Tyler finished. He reached down, palm finding Ash's ruff. "Took him 7 years, 3 countries, and a whole lot of hurt, but he made it." Ash's tail thumped once, soft, satisfied. Harper sipped her tea, warmth seeping into hands still calloused from fence work. "Funny," she said. "I thought I rescued him from that kennel." Tyler chuckled low, rasped. "You did. But maybe he was rescuing us too." She leaned back on her elbows, gazing at the crooked sign visible by porch lantern. "Redemption Field. You think this place will hold? Once the cameras fade, the grants get slow, politics pivot?" "Place don't hold," Tyler said. "People do. And dogs," she added. "Especially dogs." They fell quiet again. A moth circled the lantern, wings casting flickers on weather-beaten planks. In the yard, Tango stirred, let out a puppyish yip, then settled against the fence post, reassured by Ash's steady scent drifting on the breeze. Harper watched the younger shepherd, eyes soft. "He'll run clean one day." "He already does," Tyler said. "Inside." She considered that, then smiled, small, luminous. "You sound like someone who finally believes in home." Tyler set his mug on the step. "Maybe I do." He faced the vast, dark, unafraid. "Home isn't the walls. It's the whisper that tells you where to rest." Harper tipped her head onto his shoulder lightly, so as not to jar him. He tensed, then relaxed into the contact. Ash opened one eye, assessed the closeness, approved with a huff, and shut it. "Tomorrow," Harper murmured. "Luis wants to start framing the agility yard. Sophie's bringing 2 more intake files. One's a Malinois burnout, handler deceased. The other's a lab mix bomb sniffer who won't leave the kennel." Tyler's lips twitched. "We'll teach them wind and wide spaces." He lifted Harper's hand, guided it to Ash's head. "And patience." She scratched the bent ear gently. "Think we can scale patience?" Tyler laughed, the sound more sunrise than night. "We've got a lifetime supply." They lingered like that, 2 scarred humans, and 1 retired war dog anchored to the porch while galaxies arced overhead. No cameras, no orders, no erasure, just heartbeat, breathing, wood settling. Eventually Harper straightened, stretching sore muscles. "Time to grab a few hours. Dawn chores wait for no one." Tyler nodded. "I'll sit a bit longer." She gathered the empty mugs, paused at the door. "Good night, Sergeant." "Good night, Captain," he teased. She rolled her eyes, disappeared inside. The door clicked. Silence expanded, but it felt gentle, like a blanket. Tyler turned his face skyward. "We did it, buddy." Ash scooted closer, nose nudging knuckles. Tyler scratched the thick fur, felt warmth pulse beneath. "Go home," he repeated, softer than breath. And in the hush between those words and the world's next turning, Tyler realized the whisper had changed. It wasn't a command anymore. It was a destination already reached, etched in paw prints across desert dust, in the uneven fence line, in the dream quiet of a younger dog learning courage. Ash sighed, content. The whisper had returned. And this time, it stayed. Dawn arrived like watercolor over Redemption Field, pale light brushing barns and fence posts. Sophie Ruiz parked her beat-up hatchback beside the crooked cedar sign. She sat for a breath, repeating her silent promise. Start small. Listen first. Remember to breathe. She stepped into desert air, bone broth clinking in mason jars tucked in her backpack. Across the yard, Tyler Kane forked hay into stalls. A German shepherd patrolled nearby Ash, posture steady, tail a calm metronome. Morning, Miss Ruiz, Tyler said without looking. Sophie, she replied, nerves showing in her smile. Reporting for duty. Duty here mostly means listening to what the dogs won't say out loud. He sniffed the breeze. You smell that? She inhaled. Sage, dust, warm metal. Whom? He chuckled. Close enough. Come meet the crew. In the barn, Sophie knelt before each stall. Tango, Maple, Blitz. She offered her hand without pressure, her voice without force. Dogs drifted near, sniffed, retreated, returned. Maple licked her palm. Even shy Tango leaned forward. Blitz simply watched. Tyler leaned on his cane, nodding. You're fluent. I grew up with rescues. Dogs taught me Spanish verbs before school did. They shared a laugh. Blitz flicked an ear, like he'd heard hope and recognized it. Later that morning, a generator backfired near the tool shed. The crack echoed like gunfire. Ash dropped into a guard stance. Blitz barked. Sophie flinched, dropping the gauze she was wrapping Tango's paw with. Her breath stuttered. The air changed. Plats, Tyler said gently. Ash folded down. Still watchful, but still, Tyler crouched beside her without touching. Loud sounds? She nodded. My dad's tire shop had compressors that popped like that. I always jumped. Tango nosed her wrist. Sophie smiled shakily, reaching to steady herself in the act of comforting him. Tyler placed the dropped gauze in her hand. Try again. She did. This time her fingers didn't shake. When she tied the knot, Tango licked her cheek. Ash approached, nudging her shoulder softly. She stiffened, then let her hand rest in his fur-grounding warmth. Steady heartbeat. Thank you, Sergeant, she whispered. Ash huffed and resumed patrol. Tyler stood. Fears like desert wind. Hard to stop. Easier to lean into. Sophie blinked against tears. You meant her by metaphor? Only the ones dogs approve. They gathered for lunch, under a mesquite tree bean chili. Shared silence. Sophie slipped broth to Blitz's stall. No one mentioned the generator, but Tyler nodded subtly each time Ash circled near her. Late afternoon, they headed to the training track. Ash will show Tango how to stride. You'll show Blitz how to trust, Tyler said, handing Sophie a rope toy. Not tug, just offer. Blitz approached, wary. Sophie knelt, toy resting on her palms. He sniffed, took it, returned it. She laughed light and clear. Trust given, trust returned. Tyler's smile was small but full. See? Fluent. That night, Sophie journaled under the stars. Ash equals ground wire for everyone. A generator hummed steadily. No flinching. Just sage in the air and gratitude in her breath. Tyler's voice carried from the doorway. Tomorrow we try clicker therapy with Blitz. I'll be ready, she said. And meant it. Because here, trembling wasn't disqualification, it was invitation. A scarred dog could teach calm. A blind Marine could teach courage. And redemption wasn't a place. It was something passed hand to hand, paw to palm, heart to heart. By the next day, the sun bleached the sky to bone. Sophie ran leash drills with Tango. His limp had lessened. His stride smoothed. Luis leaned on the rail. He's shaving seconds every lap. Tyler stood under the lone cottonwood. Ash walked the fence line, ever alert. At the far curve, Sophie knelt, offered a treat. A low rumble rolled across the desert thunder. Tango snapped. One moment, he was a healing shepherd. The next, a flash of teeth and fear. He turned on Sophie, jaws stopping inches from her hand. She stumbled back, heart pounding. Blitz barked. Maple bayed. Ash froze. Sophie's voice broke. Easy, boy. Tango wasn't here anymore. He was in a war zone. Tyler dropped his cane, crossed the field without haste. He sat down in the dust, cross-legged, unarmed. No voice, no commands, just presence. Ash mirrored the posture nearby, body curved, ears forward, offering gravity, not dominance. Sophie stood frozen. "I tightened the leash," she whispered. "When the thunder rolled, I flinched." Harper touched her arm. "Stay. Watch." Tungu paced, confused. No one corrected him. No threat. No target. He slowed. Sniffed Tyler's boot. Whined. Tyler placed his hand palm up in the dust. Invitation, not demand. Tango stepped closer, nose to fingers. A breath passed. Then he sank into a sit-shoulders, still trembling, but breath evening out. Slowly, he laid down, body curling toward Ash. Only then did Tyler speak. "Storm's just noise, soldier. Sky can't hurt you here." Sophie knelt opposite him. "I'm sorry. I brought fear into the leash." Tyler's voice was kind. "Fear borrows any crack in the door. You just helped close it." She looked to Ash. He closed it. Ash thumped his tail once. Louise handed Tyler a canteen. Harper closed her notebook, knowing some lessons didn't need recording. That night, rain tapped gently on tin roofs. Tango slept deep inside Haven. No pacing, no spinning, just quiet sleep. Sophie and Tyler stood outside the stall with mugs of mint tea. "Leg tremors stopped," she said. "Pulse normal." Good," Tyler replied. "Next storm we'll be readier." Will he ever forget? Tyler shook his head. "We don't erase pain. We build around it." He stroked Ash's fur. "Like scar tissue, tougher than the skin before." Ash closed his eyes, content. Sophie rested her palm on the stall rail, feeling the truth settle into her bones. By mid-morning the next day, sun sliced through the open barn door like a blade. Harper stood back from a newly paneled wall, scent of cedar and linseed in the air. Chula stood beside her, fingers clasped, listening. Ash sat at his heel. Tango rested nearby, head tilted. Luis drove the final brass screw. Sophie stood on a ladder, finishing the final brushstroke in gold enamel. A wall of nameplates stretched shoulder-high. Ranger, MWD, 800, A4, Echo, Bomb Sniff, High, Maple, SAR, 5-1I, Tango, Explosives K9, and many more. Each name once a secret. Now, a legacy. At the top, in larger type, Wrecker, RZK, 17. He never forgot. Harper's voice filled the barn. This isn't a memorial for death. It's a promise to the living. They mattered, even when paperwork said otherwise. Sophie climbed down, admiring the gold on cedar. It gleams like sunrise after a long night. Luis nodded. Gold soft. Leaves a mark when the story presses hard enough. Tyler reached for Wrecker's plaque, fingertips tracing each raised letter, reading history, like Braille. Ash wagged once. Sophie wiped her eyes. And for one sacred moment, everyone in the barn, dog or human, stood still enough to remember what it meant to be broken, and to survive anyway. "When we were ghosts," Tyler whispered. Names were the first thing stripped. He moved to the second row and read aloud, letting the syllables hang like prayer beads. Ranger, Duchess, Bravo. Each name carried a cadence, joy, grit, mischief rising from brass and cedar into the rafters. A low rumble of approval vibrated from Ash's chest. Tango trotted over, sniffed the new wood, and unexpected pressed his nose to his own plaque. He withdrew, then licked the cool metal, tail wagging shyly. Harper's smile trembled. He recognizes himself. "Dogs know scent first," Sophie said, voice hushed. "But I swear they feel their names." She reached into her pocket, pulled a slim black marker, and handed it to Tyler. "Would you," her chin tipped toward an empty space on the bottom row, "write the next one? There'll always be another." Tyler uncapped the pen, hesitated over fresh cedar. His blind eyes shimmered, but his hand was steady. "Hope, TBD," he printed, letters large and simple. Ash's ear flicked. Tango barked once, soft as a laugh. Luis adjusted his cap. "TBD? To be discovered," Harper interpreted, cheeks dimpling. "Dog's not here yet, but on the horizon. Like room at the table," Luis said. The barn doors creaked wider as a desert breeze entered warm now. carrying faint wildflower scent from a storm-kissed arroyo. Sunlight crawled across the plaques, setting the gold letters ablaze. A hush, thicker than before, settled over them. Even Blitz, watching from his stall, lowered his head. Tyler broke the silence, voice rough with gratitude. "Names give shape to silence," he said. "When we speak them, we fill the cracks time leaves." Harper glanced at him, eyes bright. "Would you do the honor?" Tyler nodded. He faced the wall squarely. Ash rose, pressed against his leg. Tango stood beside Ash. Smaller shadow, echoing larger. "Ranger," Tyler began, tone firm yet tender. "Duchess, Bravo, Atlas, Echo, Maple, Blitz, Tango." Each name rolled off his tongue like a stone set in a river, unhurried, perfect in its placement. He paused at the top plaque, a breath. "And Wrecker RZK-17, he finished. He never forgot. Neither will we. Harper's whisper braided with his. "Here, they are home." Sophie wiped a tear, paint forgotten on her cheek. Luis cleared his throat, offering no words, just respect carved in the lines of his weathered face. From outside, the distant roll of thunder echoed less menacing now, more like the earth purring. Tango yielded no fear. Ash's stance never wavered. Harper reached up, pinning a final strip of burlap across the bottom edge of the wall, a blank timeline for futures yet redeemed. "Welcome to the living roll call," she said. Sunlight slipped lower, gilding each plaque until the barn glowed like a shrine built not of marble but of labor, dust, and love. Dogs shifted, sniffed, laid down. Humans exhaled. The world outside remained restless, but inside Redemption Field, names had reclaimed their power. And beneath the quiet blaze of brass letters, Tyler felt the whisper return, once more steady, warm, undeniable. "Go home." Every name on the wall answered back. Morning broke gold across Redemption Field as Tyler, Kane, and Luis mended the east fence. Breakfast simmered over a camp stove. Oats, black coffee. Ash and Tango swept the perimeter, silent shadows against dawn. At 8:17, a dusty sedan sputtered up the drive. The courier handed Harper a small bundle, catalog, grant packet, and one unmarked envelope bone, colored, no return address. Block letters read, "Redemption Field, Ayton T. Kane." Harper's gut twisted. She called Tyler over comms. Minutes later, the envelope lay on the porch table. Tyler inspected it, new paper, no dust. Harper slit the seal. One glossy photo slid out, face down. Beneath it, a single typed line. "You should have stayed erased." Sophie turned the photo. It was Tyler and Ash, taken 2 days earlier near the paddock. Mid-stride, clean telephoto angle professional lens, not a phone. From the ridge, maybe. Silence fell. "They've been watching," Luis muttered. "The ridge cam?" Harper asked. "Still offline since the storm," Sophie replied. "No fingerprints," Tyler murmured. "They wore gloves, dropped it into the maelstream deliberately." "Intimidation," Luis said. Ash stood between Tyler and the yard alert, unreadable. Tango whimpered. Inside the thick adobe common room, Tyler laid it out. "Someone wants Echo Vortex buried. They're probing." Harper nodded. "Could be Ezrin's network, what's left of it." "We don't alert law enforcement yet," Tyler added. "Not until we know which uniforms still serve justice." They marked the camera's likely vantage. Knob Hill, 90 meters out. That night, Tyler and Ash would hike it quiet, lights off. "You're bait," Sophie whispered. "Predators choose the same path twice," Tyler replied. Ash leaned into his leg, resolute. At sunset, Harper reset the ridge cam. Sophie handed Tyler a flare, in case. He smiled. "Your hands aren't shaking." "Not on the outside," she murmured. Luis watched them vanish into the dusk. Inside, Tango lay at the door, waiting. At the radio console, Harper listened. Tyler's voice came through soft. "North fence, clear, approaching knob." Then, flash. North ridge, single click. A shudder, someone out there. Unknown retreated downslope, Tyler confirmed. Ash holding. An hour later, they returned. Tyler carried a high-end DSLR with a snapped tripod leg. "They left their eyes behind," Sophie said. Harper placed the envelope beside the camera. "They mailed fear. We received clarity." Next day, a slate-gray SUV crept up the drive. Harper stood waiting, intruder's camera slung across her shoulder. Agent Ken Voss stepped out, suit sharp, eyes sharper. No team, no weapons, just a briefcase. "We can talk?" he asked smoothly. "We're always transparent," Harper replied, red light blinking on her lens. Tyler appeared from the barn, Ash beside him. Voss blinked at the dog. "Sergeant Kane," he said. "Dog looks recovered." "Truth does that," Tyler replied. Voss opened his briefcase, revealing a tablet titled Transition Proposal. "Washington wants this quiet. You deserve peace. Full relocation, lifetime stipends, vet care for the dogs. In exchange, shut down redemption field. Witness protection for telling the truth?" Harper asked. "Call it retirement. Safe. Invisible." Tyler's hand settled on Ash's head. "We tried invisible. Didn't fit. Am true." Voss tapped the screen. "Money. Property. Idaho woods. No subpoenas. No headlines." Harper narrowed her eyes. "Why now?" "You opened a door," Voss admitted. "Echo Vortex wasn't the only program. There are others, still operational." Tyler's voice turned cold. "More erased names. You walk, and the rest stay clean. You stay, and someone messier than me will deal with it." Ash growled, quiet and final. Voss pulled a sealed envelope, official, embossed. "Last offer." Harper raised her camera. "We're recording. Sunshine's a good disinfectant." Voss snapped the case closed. "You think a stream protects you? People disappear." Tyler's smile held iron. "We disappeared once. Still here." Voss's expression cracked. "I'm trying to save you." "No," Tyler whispered. "You're trying to save them." He let the envelope fall to the fence. Tango trotted over and pissed on it. Harper barked a laugh. Even Tyler's shoulders shook. "Send the footage to Delia," he said. "Sequel time." Ash pressed closer. Thunderclouds brewed. Harper's eyes gleamed. "Let them come." That night, moonlight washed Redemption Field silver. Storms had passed. The air smelled of cedar and defiance. Tyler walked the outer path alone, cane holstered. Ash followed, no vest, just muscle and memory. At the Arroyo fence line, Tyler stopped beneath an old ironwood tree. He knelt, fingers in soft dirt. Ash sat beside him, watching the dark horizon. Tyler whispered, "If they come again, I won't run." Ash flicked an ear, listening not to words, but intention. "I won't surrender you either," Tyler added. He traced the collar tag RZK-17 worn smooth by time. "They erased us once to keep the story simple. We'll stay to keep it honest." Ash rose and padded to the fence. He placed his paws on the lower rail and stared outward, silent sentinel. "We hold this line," Tyler said softly. "Crooked fence, crooked people, straight purpose." Coyotes called. Tango answered. Deep in the barn, one by one, the other dogs joined. A chorus of defiance. Tyler sat, back against the post, sinking his breath with the desert's pulse. He remembered not the trauma, but the flickers inside it, Wrecker's flank and war smoke. Sophie's first smile. Harper's voice when she first said, "He remembers you." All of it led here. Two souls choosing not to vanish. Wind carried faint engine hum from miles away. Tyler smiled. "Let them find us standing." Ash tipped an ear back. "Already here." Back at the porch, Tyler unfolded a field cot, same one from Fallujah. He lay beneath the stars. Ash curled in a triangulated watch point between Tyler and the gate. Before sleep came, Tyler whispered one last truth, soft to the dust, the sky, the dog. "We're not broken. We're the proof breaking didn't work." Ash's tail thumped once affirmation, heartbeat, and then stilled. Redemption Field slept, defended by loyalty, memory, and the unblinking eyes of the dog who never forgot. The gravel drive crunched under the weight of 3 government SUVs. They moved slow, deliberate, like guests, but also like auditors. Out front, Harper waited with a clipboard she didn't need. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, just trying to tell the truth without apology. Beside her, Tyler stood, posture relaxed but rooted, one hand resting lightly on Ash's back. The German Shepherd didn't wear a vest today. He didn't need it. From the lead vehicle stepped a woman in a dark blazer, hair pinned tight, gaze sharper than necessary. She was followed by a man with a file case and another with a camera. Behind them came a former Army vet with a limp and no smile. Harper knew his name, Colonel Fain, and knew he'd once commanded a canine unit in Kandahar. No one spoke until the gate shut behind them. Then the woman in the blazer offered a hand. "Doctor Harper Lynn," she said. "I'm Evelyn Trask, Office of Defense Animal Welfare and Oversight." Harper nodded once. "We're ready for your evaluation." "We're not here to shut you down," Trask added, glancing briefly at Ash. "But there are concerns. Budget, oversight, purpose." "We don't train pets," Tyler said plainly. "And we don't need to prove the dog's worth with tricks." Trask raised a brow. "Noted, Isper." They walked in silence toward the paddock, where Tango, Maple, and 4 other shepherds waited, some pacing, some resting, one dozing in the sun. The yard was plain, but tidy. No fancy signage, no artificial turf, just earth, wood, sun, and trust. Tyler called softly, "Track." Ash trotted forward, stopped at a marked flag, sniffed once, then turned left into the mock field trail. Tango followed a few steps behind, not as fluid, still favoring the back leg but determined. Harper stood back as the dogs moved through the course they'd memorized, not by command, but by comfort. Trask scribbled something on her notepad. Tyler gestured toward the shelter behind them. "Want to see the kennels?" Fain, the quiet vet, nodded. "Show us." They passed through a metal gate where Sophie waited with 2 more handlers, both students from the local college's animal sciences program. They weren't polished. That was the point. Here, everyone, dog or person, got time to unbecome who they were told to be. Inside, the kennels were open air, shaded, with enrichment boards, scent puzzles, and quiet corners. On each gate was a laminated sheet: name, history, trauma notes, progress timeline. At the end of the row, someone had taped a paw print next to Wrecker. RZK-17, honor restored. Trask paused their longest. Her pen stopped moving. "You call him Ash," she said. "He's earned more than letters," Tyler replied. "And the others?" "Some don't have names yet," Harper said. "We wait until they tell us who they are." In the back training ring, Sophie released a young female shepherd named Lacey. The dog moved slowly, tail low, eyes alert but not anxious. Harper said this one wouldn't even eat when she arrived. She watched everyone but didn't come close. Took Ash 3 weeks just to lie in the same space without scaring her. Now Lacey approached Ash and nuzzled his shoulder. Tyler let the moment breathe, then turned to the group. "We don't force obedience, we rebuild trust." Trask looked up. "And what is the long-term goal here?" "To prove discarded dogs don't mean discarded lives," Harper said quietly. Tyler faced her next. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "These aren't assets," he said. "They're veterans." A stillness fell. Even the breeze seemed to stop moving. For a moment, no one took notes. Rick 17 did 3 tours before they erased his name from every file. And me with it. We bled together, we broke together, we survived. And we're both still here. Ash sat at his side now, not performing, just present. Colonel Fain cleared his throat. "And if Washington cuts funding?" "We stay," Tyler said. Harper nodded. "We'll find a way. The community's with us. Half the fencing came from donated scrap, the rest from parents of handlers whose dogs never came home." Trask's face softened, just slightly. "You understand this isn't standard protocol." Tyler gave a tired smile. "Neither were the missions we served on." They circled back toward the main barn, where a corkboard held photographs, some recent, some decades old. Dogs with handlers, dogs with scars. One photo near the top showed Ash as a younger dog, muzzle streaked with desert dust, a bloody paw print in the corner of the frame. Someone had written below it, "Still standing." Trask stepped back. Fain nodded once. The man with the file case closed it. Evelyn Trask looked at Harper. "You'll have our recommendation. Expect a review every quarter. But I think your work is—" She paused, then said the word deliberately. "Necessary." She shook Harper's hand. "Thank you for not giving up." As the group turned back to the SUVs, Tango limped over to Ash and leaned his weight against the older shepherd's side. They stood like that for a full minute, no movement, no cue, just a silent transfer of trust. Tyler turned to Harper as the gates opened again behind them. "I think that was the easy part," he said. Harper smiled faintly. "Then we're ready for the hard part. They didn't watch the cars leave. Instead, they watched the dogs, 6 of them now, tails lifting in the wind, ears pricked toward the sound of someone hammering fence posts in the next field. Work never ended. Neither did healing. And neither, Tyler knew, did purpose. Veterans Day came not with banners, but with dew. The sun broke gently over Lark Pines Hills, brushing the tops of the red oaks with amber light. Along Main Street, folding chairs appeared on sidewalks before most businesses opened. No brass band. No television crews, just families with thermoses of coffee, folded flags in their laps, and hands held over hearts not out of spectacle but memory. At the edge of the street, near the corner where the bakery met the town library, Harper adjusted her scarf and scanned the forming line. No uniforms, no formal salutes. This parade wasn't for show. It was for the ones who came back quieter than they left, for the ones still walking through fog in their sleep. At the front of the procession stood Tyler. His jacket was plain, worn canvas, no rank insignia, no badges, just a hand resting on the shoulders of the dog at his side. Ash wore a vest, not combat black, but soft gray with a single stitched line in blue. Retired Combat K9, RZK-17. His ears flicked once as the wind picked up. Around them, murmurs settled into hush. Children hushed by instinct, not command. And somewhere along the line, a bell tolled once. Then silence. Then steps. Slow, measured. Tyler and Ash began the walk together, not as handler and asset, but as survivors. Each footfall felt like memory, not only his own, but others. Tyler carried the weight of the forgotten with each stride. But it didn't feel heavy. Not today. Because Ash walked beside him, gaze steady, body calm, as if he knew they were no longer hiding. Behind them, Sophie moved with Tango. The younger shepherd limped slightly, but didn't falter. His vest bore no words yet, just a blank patch, waiting. Sophie walked with a gentle hand at his side. She didn't correct him, didn't coax. She simply matched his pace, letting him know he wasn't walking alone. The town watched in a quiet reverence that spoke more than cheers ever could. An old man near the post office wiped his eyes as they passed. He didn't wave, he stood. A young girl pressed a small drawing to the chest of her coat, a crayon-sketched dog with the words, "Thank you for saving my uncle." Outside the fire station, someone had tied yellow and blue ribbons to the hydrant. They fluttered in the wind, like whispers from voices no longer here. Tyler felt Ash pause slightly, then resume. Maybe he'd caught a scent. Maybe just a memory. Harper walked just behind Sophie, camera forgotten in her hand. She'd intended to document the moment, but there were times when witnessing was enough. The parade passed the diner, where Reese sat in his wheelchair, hand raised in a subtle salute. Next to him stood Naomi, holding the leash of her own dog, a shepherd mix she'd rescued from the shelter. They didn't speak, but Ash glanced their way, and Naomi nodded once. Recognition exchanged in silence. Halfway down the street, the church bell rang again. Not a signal, just the hour. But to Tyler, it sounded like a heartbeat. Steady, real. Ash's pace didn't change, but his tail, once still, lifted not wagging, but present. Someone behind them began humming a tune old military cadence, softened by age and grief. Others joined, not loudly, just enough to carry like wind through pine needles. By the time they reached the square, children had stepped into the street, not to crowd, not to disrupt, just to walk alongside. One boy, maybe 8, held out a ribbon and, with shaking fingers, tied it gently to Ash's vest. The shepherd looked at him, eyes soft, ears forward. The boy whispered, "Thank you," and ran back to his mother's arms. Sophie whispered to Tyler, "This isn't a parade." He nodded. "It's a homecoming." They stopped in front of the town monument. The stone was old, worn, names chiseled by hand, some from wars no one remembered in textbooks, some recent. Harper stepped forward now and placed a new plaque beneath the stone, in honor of those who served without voice, without choice, and still stood guard. He was not a weapon. He was my brother. Staff Sergeant Tyler Misukane. There were no speeches, just the wind, the rustle of paper programs, and the quiet movement of dogs finding shade beneath the oak tree. Ash lay at Tyler's feet, head resting gently on his boots. Tango curled beside Sophie, eyes half closed but alert. Harper knelt beside the new plaque and ran her fingers over the words. Then someone clapped. Just once. Then another and another. It wasn't the kind of applause given after performances. It was the kind given after truth. Tyler didn't bow, didn't wave. He looked to Ash, and the dog, quiet, scarred, whole, lifted his head and met his gaze. They'd made it home. The desert didn't cool quickly. Even after the sun began its slow descent behind the jagged cliffs of Hollow Mesa, heat still rose from the red earth in quiet waves, shimmering like ghosts refusing to let go. Tyler sat on the porch of the bunkhouse, legs stretched, one boot heel tapping absently against the wooden step. The boards beneath him creaked with the memory of footsteps, long faded. Above, the wind moved through the rafters in a hush, carrying with it the scent of dust, juniper, and something older, something earned. Ash lay curled at his feet, the gray in his muzzle more noticeable now, but his eyes still amber, still watching, had never looked more alive. Harper joined him without a word. She carried 2 mugs, steam curling like breath in the cooling air. She handed one to Tyler and sat beside him, their shoulders just touching. They watched the horizon in silence. Out there, beyond the fields and fences, beyond the last row of cottonwoods that lined Redemption Field like sentinels, the land fell away into open sky, the kind of sky that didn't belong to any one person. Or perhaps the kind that belonged to anyone willing to stand still long enough to see it. The light turned gold. Harper took a sip, then asked quietly, "Do you think it's enough?" Tyler didn't answer right away. He let the question breathe. Let the sky hold it. The screen door creaked behind them, then clicked shut again. Somewhere in the distance, Tango barked once, not in alarm, just in greeting. Sophie was walking him along the fence line, her silhouette small against the broadening dusk. Tyler looked down at Ash. The dog's ears twitched, but he didn't move. His breathing was slow, grounded, like he trusted the world would hold. "For the ones we can reach?" Tyler said at last, voice steady. "Yes." He paused, letting the weight of the second half land where it needed to. "For the ones still lost?" He glanced at the fading sun, its rim now kissing the earth. "We keep looking." Harper nodded, not with certainty, but with acceptance. The world didn't give answers. It gave chances. Ash stirred, rising slowly. He stepped down off the porch, walked a few paces into the red dirt, then sat, facing west. Facing where the light still lingered. Harper watched him. He never stopped searching. "No," Tyler said. He just needed someone to wait long enough for him to find his way back. Behind them, the wind picked up gentle but insistent. It tugged at the edges of a faded flag hanging near the barn. The stars were frayed, the stripes muted from sun and rain, but it still held, just like they did. Harper leaned her head against Tyler's shoulder. "You ever think about leaving all this behind? Starting fresh, somewhere quiet?" He gave a half smile. "This is quiet." "No, I mean the kind of quiet without purpose, without ghosts." He looked out across the field, where Tango now walked without a limp, where a young girl knelt beside a dog once marked unfit, where names once erased now lived on a wall. "I think we've earned our ghosts," he said. Ash let out a soft huff, as if in agreement. The sun dipped lower, shadows lengthened, but they didn't feel heavy. Tyler leaned forward and picked up a small stone at his feet. He turned it over in his palm, smooth, round, ordinary, then placed it beside the porch post. A simple ritual. A mark of being present, of staying, Harper whispered. "You ever wonder why it was him? Why Ash found his way back to you after everything?" Tyler's gaze didn't leave the horizon. "Because even when I was erased," he remembered. He reached down, brushing the tips of his fingers along Ash's back as the shepherd stepped close again, curling up beside him with a contented grunt. No command, no leash, just faith. Harper smiled, her eyes glinting with tears, not from sadness, but from fullness. The last sliver of sun disappeared, and in its place, stars began to blink into view, scattered like quiet promises above the mesa. Ash exhaled, eyes closing. Not broken, not abandoned. Finally home. And beside him, the man who'd once been forgotten. and the woman who refused to let the truth stay buried. They sat in silence as night settled around them, not afraid of the dark anymore, because they had each other, and they'd keep looking, always. Some bonds don't need words, just a steady presence, a familiar heartbeat, and a pair of eyes that say, "I see you, and I'm staying." That's what dogs, especially German shepherds, give us. Not just loyalty, but a kind of quiet companionship that carries us through grief, joy, and everything in between. Stories like Tyler and Ash's remind us, healing often comes on 4 legs. If this story touched something in you, maybe it's time to deepen the connection with your own dog, or simply understand them better. There's a resource I found helpful, one that speaks not just to training but to trust, memory, and the invisible thread that ties us together. If you're curious, take a look. No pressure. Just something I'd share over coffee with a friend who truly gets what it means to love a dog. Because in the end, they're not just pets, they're family, and they remember the way home even when we forget.